Ready to go?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't have a funny name yet, but
1, 2, 3, go. Mine's the same as last week, only now I'm officially recertified.
hmm.
I'm a recertified commissar. That really, I was telling you, I was thinking about sending it to O'Keefe. I wonder if anybody's sent in the HR training to that guy of what every single HR manager in your universe is getting put through, because it's as bad as anything you see on their exposés, him and Christopher Rufo. But I've never seen
Yeah.
anybody.
Well, it's also me because who decides that? Because that's things you think oh, it's because you work in the private sector, you know. So how did you end up getting forced to do that stuff?
Well, I mean, it's just a certification that looks good, and certain places will demand it, especially the more corporate they get. But then that kind of runs downstream. So even my place that doesn't even really care or know about it, they'll still they'll, if they put out an ad, they'll see the other ads say SPHR certified on a on a HR thing, and so then they'll put that in there, like, if you must have 10 years of experience and be SPHR certified to just look like you've jumped through the hoops to be this level of HR person or whatever. But
So crazy.
it's redonkulous.
It's amazing how they sneak it in there.
Yeah, they get into everything, but that's just kind of how the managerial class works. It's nothing in it. All right, let's see it. There's Troy referencing the Dan McKinnon. Dan McKinnon. I actually didn't have like a ton on Dan McClellan. I just saw that picture and thought it would be fun to screw around with. Although there's some on Dan McClellan. But what are you drinking?
This is an inexpensive California wine that's sort of modeled on Cote de Rhone. It's because we didn't. I've only recently got it available in our store, but Frank Black, Frank Black mentioned this kind of wine in an interview.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would say what it is, but I don't think I'm supposed to.
Why?
Because I work for the state,
Oh,
and there's all kinds of conflict of interest stuff, and I don't know.
they're
It
not
just
supposed to.
yeah, dirt,
Dar,
dirt
people.
over dogma.
It took me a while to get his triple cross-eyed going on right there. He's cross-eyed, and
I
he's
mean,
got he's got the extra eye, but
I
I
know
knew.
we say it every time, but it really it's bothers me just how not only wrong he is when he says data over dogma, but it's actually the dead opposite of what he does.
Yeah,
His so-called scholarship is all dogma,
it's
and
just a perfect description of how those guys get their goofy BS going, how they launder in their stuff to make it sound MIT technical. Jared's on there. Ask me what I'm drinking. Listen to Flip Rant.
shitty 100 proof vodka. Eh,
Out of a flask, ethanol
yeah,
delivery, as he calls it.
vodka is for drunks. That's what I. That's how I'd always say. It's just that vodka's for drunks. I mean, because that's the only thing vodka's
You
for.
calling Russia drunks?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and it was funny. I was listening to this. There's a YouTuber that talks about Soviet Russia, and he was talked about. I forget the Russian word for it is, but you might just be on the street. You might be walking down the street or something, and some guy would stop you and say, "Do you want to be our third?" And what that was a clue for was that because vodka came in half-liter bottles, and the whole thing is that that a half liter was the exact amount to share among three people. Because if there's only two of you and you finish the bottle, that's too much. That's you're too drunk. And four people is nobody gets drunk enough. And so that was, so you might buy a bottle of vodka with your friend, but then you just ask a stranger hey, do you want to be our third? Just because you're supposed to have three people for half a liter, because that's how they dosed themselves.
So some of the stuff feels like rehash with Dan McClellan, because he's just constantly rehashing the same stuff, just like he rehashes his same lingo, just like he has the same exact sayings, same exact videos. But I swear we covered this before, but nope, this is this week.
Yep.
Trevor Lee says men can't breastfeed. Keep on trying, Brother McClellan. You keep asserting what you know to be a falsehood because you know the right wing authoritarians on whom your structuring of power relies care far more about virtue signaling than about truth.
It's amazing.
It's
It's
so,
perfect projection. It is perfect projection.
yeah, I commented on this one. I said, I don't think there's anybody who projects harder than Dan McClellan. I mean, I think,
Yeah. I think even I commented on this one.
what'd you put? It's so,
Something about that, just so that it's just pure projection. Like, but it's amazing. Like, no, that's you, Dan. You're the guy who's saying something that you know isn't true because the left-wing authoritarians on whom you rely, like
don't you
you
know
get
that,
all of your power from parroting left-wing authoritarianism.
don't you know that pus and substance coming out of a nipple is technically something that contains calories? So he's technically right on a technicality, dude. But he does basically argue that.
And then he calls this guy a white supremacist. Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and call bullshit. In fact, I'm gonna guess that if you ask Trevor Lee, do you repudiate racism in all its forms, he would say yes. And we already know that Dan McClellan is a racist and repeats weird racist conspiracy theories that are just endemic to the left now. Like,
Yeah.
again, it's perfect projection. You're the racist, Dan. You're the one who knows you're lying. You know men can't breastfeed, but you got to play your power word game and say that it is. Say that they can, and pretend that your racism is A, not racism, and B, the good kind of racism.
Yep. So, did you attend Sunstone this year?
No.
Why not?
Oh man, did it? I guess it already happened, huh?
Yeah. Do
I
you know
wonder
who
what.
the opening speaker was? I think he was the second. It was
And then the opening plenary was Daniel McClellan.
I wonder what their crowds are like. I
he
wonder
said
if
it was twice as much this year than last year. You know who else talked?
who said that though?
And then after she started to field questions, Kara Burrell, also known as Nuance Ho, came on and said, ask a question. They had
Killer stuff. All killer
Wow.
stuff. You're missing out.
I'm sure there. I'm just gonna go ahead out on a limb and say that there's more diversity of opinion in an actual Mormon sacrament meeting than happened at Sunstone this year.
Oh.
Like, I bet you if you go into a Mormon ward house, there is more political variety. There's probably more diversity. I'm just guessing because like this is just woke bullshit. It really is. It's just that. That's all they've got.
Well, but the opening rock star now is Dan McClellan. We just saw the other day or this morning, I think Jonathan was showing us that some people noticed that he threw shade at Dan McClellan on RFM. And I
And
don't
he's
even think he
anti-trans.
threw, yeah, but I don't even think he threw that much shade at Dan McClellan. He just kind of said, hey, well, rethink when somebody's telling you data and dogma. But then that was enough for people on Reddit to be like, what's he got against McClellan?
Well,
Dude.
well, see, and it's one of the many giveaways that we're dealing with a dogmatic and authoritarian religious faith. Because like I'm an ass and I make fun of people and I don't mince words and I'm perfectly happy to tell people exactly what I think of them or their ideas. Jonathan is always nice. He's always measured. He's always reasoned. He always gets his facts in order. He always cops to where he doesn't have them. Like Jonathan is very careful and nice. So if Jonathan says something that makes you feel like an attack, then like guaranteed we're dealing with basically a religious dogmatist, or a supporter of religious dogmatist. Just that. Like Jonathan is nice. Jonathan does a good job. Like, I don't. Like, if people say, "Oh, you're mean," like, well, yeah, I think I'm not only mean, but I'm not nice. I'm not nice like Jonathan is nice.
Yeah. Here's another Machiavellian. He was able to McClellan a whole lot this week. Like, I would be very frustrated with life if I kept waking up and every day I was a Dan McClellan again. Like, that would be real difficult. I mean, there's some people I feel sorry for, and I do feel sorry for him that every day he sees his own egghead in the mirror. Let's see here. This is somebody talking about misinformation, which is one of the things that's coming up. Did you see that the World Health Organization is putting out a large new thing about misinformation, and the UN is passing a law that any going against that disinformation is now no longer free speech. And places like Twitter and YouTube are following the UN's free speech laws
That's amazing.
to go along with that. So then this guy says, well, what sort of information? Like that the virus originated in a lab in Wuhan, that ivermectin was effective, that long-term shutdowns were counterproductive, that the shot was not safe or effective. Elaborate. And here comes Dan McKagan, who woke up not being able to help being Dan McClellan again. And many of the people who make laws in Utah are thoughtlessly committed to spreading medical misinformation that has contributed to the deaths of numerous Utahns. That such bafflingly ignorant and dogmatic people are in control of our state is a profound source of embarrassment.
Can't not project. Like,
I would be so, if he was in charge of anything, I would jump. I would jump off the state. I'd jump off it. I wouldn't even need a driveway. I'd jump and I'd land somewhere else. This authority. Everybody else is the authoritarian.
I would absolutely rebel. Yeah, no, Dan, you are the authoritarian. You are nakedly authoritarian, and you also lie and you spread medical misinformation. Because that's the other thing is like hilarious is that like this guy makes some specific points. Dan, is it misinformation that the virus very likely originated in a lab in Wuhan? Like, are you saying that there is no evidence that ivermectin?
In the comment section, they were acting like this guy said pure, absolute lies right here. All four of these are absolute, unadulterated lies. And when Dan McClellan pointed it out, it brought all the people who think that way to this guy's page to have him say, these are all absolute lies. So they're absolutely sure that the virus originating in the Wuhan lab is still white supremacy. That ivermectin was effective. I saw Dan get into it with somebody else that he just completely gaslit about it. It's like, nobody ever said it wasn't effective. There were just some doctors, he just completely gaslighting that they didn't like pull a complete wool job of making sure that people couldn't get it.
Because like, I mean, at that point, like, he's just lying, right? Like,
it's pure gaslighting. Anybody who's like throwing the shade about the ivermectin, that they didn't make a big deal of people who wanted to try to use that instead of going the route of getting the shot were horrible non-people who needed to be kicked off the planet, are straight lying, and that they didn't try to do everything they could to make it so doctors couldn't prescribe it or pharmacies couldn't give it out even if it were prescribed. You're straight gaslighting liars. I think there's actually on that one, like there's still some stuff that like might say ivermectin, it might not, it's not like it was going to be like the cure, the super cure or something like that. It's not like perfectly proven, but it is just a thing that shows that in general it's helpful for infections, things that get infected and need to kill the infectious thing. But anything that's infectious, that's why it's, somebody, whoever invented it or found it, won a Nobel Prize or something like that 4 or 5 years ago for using it with different types of parasites. But
it's funny.
Long-term shutdowns were counterproductive is just 100% true. You have to be willfully ignorant to not know that one.
This is one where like a lot of us surmised that from the beginning.
On the first second, I got screamed at the very first day I posted that on my Facebook
I did too. Page. In fact, no, like just today at work, the guy was the facilities guy was coming by to reinstall the barriers that like did nothing, and it's because like it's this weird idea that like because like you go to the grocery store or whatever, and they put up that big plastic barrier, as if respiratory viruses propagate like photons in straight lines, and you just need to put up a barrier, and because that's the first time I saw one, I was like, what? No, how is this supposed to work? Especially when like every single thing, like you touch everything, you put it on the counter, the cashier touches everything and then gives it back to you. Like it's just, and just the idea, like, that anybody thought that those would be effective for literally anything at any time. But it's amazing though. Like, I mean, this is the thing I've actually been thinking about because, like, I remember when I was a missionary and I learned about the miracle of Fatima, and because lots of people still believe that, and they, so thousands of people claim that they saw like the sun dance in the sky, and and for Catholics, it's this thing. It's like, well, it must have happened. How could all of these people been wrong about this?
Collective witness.
And then, but that's the thing though. It's like the entire American democratic world had a mass hallucination where they heard Donald Trump call Nazis fine people. They all hallucinated that. Like, there's
It's
nothing
kind of weird
else to
how
call
they
that.
don't bring that one up so much anymore.
Yeah. But like, and that's things like, and I was like, oh, like, what? Now it's nothing to imagine that 10,000 people hallucinated something because 100 million Americans hallucinated something, Like, now I get it. Like, oh, that's how that works. It's people want something to be true, they just say so. But here's the other, like, in the comments, when Christopher Rice says PorchCon must invite Nuance. So I think it'd be funny because, like, if we did a PorchCon, I think this is how it would work: is we would only invite people that we're critical of, and none of them would come. Like that would be how that goes.
That's our world, man.
We want to talk to you. We actually want to talk to you. We want to try to hammer this stuff out, but we know that you are not interested. You will stand far away and call us racists and everything else.
Christopher Rice says ventilators might have killed a bunch of people, and that's true. And that's actually one that I knew before they were putting them on ventilators too. I have the bassist in my band as a nurse and an ER nurse, and then he was like a nurse for people in hospice and all that sort of stuff. And they knew forever ago that if you put people on ventilators too long, it causes pneumonia. They knew that. They've always known that. It's not some shocking thing. So you have all these people who come in and say, oh, I'm kind of having a tough time breathing. You put them on a ventilator for 48 hours. You are causing the pneumonia with that ventilator. I guarantee a ton of that excess deaths was caused by that stupid idea from all. And people who knew about it were saying it before it. They weren't saying it after it. Brett Weinstein's just been ripping the stuff to shreds, and he, of course, does such a much better job of it. But I mean, Dan McClellan's the misinformation guy. And that last thing that guy said, he said that the you could do this one on a technicality, that the shots were not safe or effective. Like, that is, no matter which way you look at it, is technically true. It's, some people got injured from it. It did not prevent the virus from spreading at all.
Yeah. And people still died with the virus.
So misinformation. So there's going to be a law now that you can't say misinformation on the Twitters and the YouTubes, even on here. You want to know one of the things that says that the new WHO stuff says? It regurgitated that age-old thing, and I already had the same old people suddenly email me and tell me that aspartame was going to cancer me up again, one more time again, and the WHO just put out the aspartame. So as of like it's next week or something like that, I can't say on YouTube technically that no, this does not cause the cancer. And it's but guess what you can say? Look at what the World Health Organization is saying right here. And they dropped this like the same day that they dropped that they're putting in those new regulations that you can't go against their crap or it's misinformation. For millions of people around the world, traditional medicine is their first stop for health and well-being. Which of these have you used? Acupuncture, Ayurveda, I don't even know that one said, herbal medicine, homeopathy, naturopathy, osteopathy, traditional Chinese medicine, Unani medicine. For millions of people, traditional medicine is often the first stop for health.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that cracks me up because, like, a lot of this stuff, I mean, in the Old Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, they talked about how traditional Chinese medicine is a modern invention. It's like less than 100 years old. It's You know, it's
Nuh-uh.
kind of like how, kind of like,
Ancient
like,
Chinese secret.
yeah, kind of like how,
Ancient secret.
kind of like how, and what people call yoga in America was invented in the last 50 years.
Yeah, I
You
heard
know,
that was totally a
yeah.
westernized crap too.
But it's
yeah.
that's totally the case with traditional Chinese medicine. Like there's almost nothing is traditional about it. It's a new thing. I think acupuncture is the same thing. Like most acupuncture is basically a modern idea. Like the supposed, the way they supposedly apply it. But
Yeah, just it's like we're
oh, look,
talking
we
about
got
like all the philosophies westernized and all that stuff too.
nobody says aspartame and sucralose are both very bad, and they're very bad tasting to me. But I wish that I didn't hate the taste of them, because otherwise, I mean, there's like if there is something to aspartame, I I guarantee it's not as bad as an equivalent dose of sugar.
All the sugar is way more cancer causing. Way by multiple
Yeah,
times. But all the studies that they did that they tried to cause it, they put so much aspartame into those mice to make some sort of cancer cause. I would have to be downing, I mean, just mainlining aspartame
yeah.
all day long, every day for 50 years straight or
And
something.
I remember my aunt in like the early '90s telling me about those studies, and she said something about how like they first off they use rats that are bred for tumors. Like they're rats that are already like super duper prone to developing tumors, and then they injected them with like the equivalent of 1,000 diet colas a day. For many days, for
Across
months,
time.
across time, and and then there's an increase in tumors. Like, well, yeah,
The dude
you
from
know,
a Skeptoid went over forever ago. The other stuff that supposedly it causes, like the way the whatever the thing that gets secreted that supposedly causes the cancer, you get way more of it from one tomato than you get from like 12 Diet Coke cans in a day. It's just a joke. But I mean that's kind of how all the alarmism is. The alarmism is just saying kind of something in the clear blue sky without it like talking about it relative to what else or whatever your other options are. There's no triage. There was no triage in the COVID ideas. There's no triage in the climate stuff. There's just alarmism for whatever one stupid thing you're gonna, because there's something useful in that. Christopher says, I'm in Vegas drinking sake and smoking a joint in a casino, but wanted to stop in and say, hey, since I'm crossing my third eye right now. Place down a bet, man. Put your I don't know, put your chakras into the universe, whatever it is, to figure out.
Yeah. Can you smoke a joint in the casino?
I'm sure nowadays, man,
Like,
you can't smoke cigarettes no more.
yeah.
Not well, you can on like the main walkways. So Boomer Remover was an appropriate nickname. I had the disease. It did cause pneumonia. I got over it in 3 days. It was difficult, but I survived. I'm glad you survived. Pure blood here forever. Aspartame and sucralose are both very bad. Stevia leaf is better, supposedly. I hate stevia. Whatever I think you taste in aspartame, I taste in stevia. Like whenever I take stevia, I just go, I just can't.
Yeah.
Like I want to melt.
All of the sugar substitutes taste like some variety of awful to me.
I think I understand it from stevia because some people like it perfectly well. And whenever I put it in my mouth, something short wires, and I've tried multiple times. I was like, it's been a couple years. Let me try the stevia again.
So I do that too every once in a while. Like every once in a while, like I'll take a sip of Diet Coke and see, like, has something changed? Nope, it hasn't.
Yeah, to me, it just tastes
awful.
Sweet. There's something genetic about it. It's only 50. It has no value. Too much of anything is bad. That is true. So.
Yeah, no, the dose makes the poison. That's the important thing there. It's like there's probably enough cinnamon in your kitchen right now to kill you.
Yeah.
If you were to, make it a solution and inject it. It's deadly,
And I would go so far as to say that
put some cinnamon on your oatmeal, you're fine. Nothing's gonna happen.
I'd go so far to say that if anybody is putting in enough aspartame to see if it's true, it's me. I've been on it 24/7 since like 17 years old, and so we'll find out if that in 30-something years causes a cancer. But I just got my blood work back, and I'm unfortunately freakishly healthy. And
You mean a good diet and exercise? Regular diet and exercise is the trick?
And I'm 44 and I'm still for life. I'm probably the only 44-year-old natty bodybuilder in the world. 100% lifetime, never anything else. Let's see, at 44, there's plenty of others. There's some others. I'm a fan of a couple of famous natty guys. Let's see. Yeah. So these commissars are going to come at us while they shoot out their misinformation, and then come at us and censor all of our information. When you control the mail, you control information. So you want to do?
True.
You want to do some critical race Mormonism? Critical Mormon theory. Critical race Mormonism.
I can think of a couple of internet commentators that are probably doing that. That reminds me, this week, I thought it was pretty hilarious. I mean, but Jacob Hansen on Thoughtful Saints, because like he was on our show when he said that when we were talking about objective basis for morality,
Mm-hmm.
and and I brought up well-being, and he said, well, well-being isn't objective, and yesterday, because it's kind of my game that I play whenever anybody asks a moral question, I just say, ask Jacob. Jacob has an objective basis for making moral judgments. He can tell you objectively what is moral and isn't. And he invoked the well-being standard. I'm like, buddy,
he always used it though. He was always into, and I never quite understood, like, why do you kind of buy Sam Harris's whole framing for metrics of what's good or what's bad, but then try to put it into the religious network? Like, I don't follow that one so much.
Well, I mean, just those things are like, but if an atheist says like, well, my standard is well-being, he's like, yeah, that's not objective. That means nothing. It's like, for him, it's okay. But that seems like, because Jacob and Dan McClellan are two peas in a pod, in the sense that they're basically authoritarians who say that, well, the things that are true are the things that I believe, and the things that I believe are the things that are true, and that's how we know.
I would say that Jacob's not yet, and this is one of the things that I'm always leery of, because you got Matt Walsh and you got what's Michael Knowles and all those types of people. Like, you can be on their side when they're underdogs, and then as underdogs they're asking for the freedom and for the liberty and being libertarian about stuff. But then when they do get political power, they do tend to try to pass laws for all that we didn't all agree to. And so far, Jacobs seems to be the type of person who says, screw the state no matter what, leave us alone, and then let us rule our own kingdom. And if that's the case, like, I am totally fine and down with that. Sure. But if it's you are going to rule the state too, then we've seen the Midnight Mormons start saying that they needed to ban alcohol, which it seemed like Jacob was pushing towards that.
That's what Jacob was saying. Like, Jacob was unironically saying that prohibition worked, which is wow. That's a stunning. That takes an amazing amount of willful ignorance to say that blanketly. Because like, that's one of those things where the Thomas Sowell, there are no solutions, only trade-offs thing is true. It's like, like, there's no solution to alcohol, there's only trade-offs. And prohibition, I think the trade-offs were not worth it. Mm-hmm. The downsides were not commensurate to the good sides.
Yeah, I mean, because they keep talking about like the good sides of like getting rid of it or something, because supposedly more people couldn't get alcohol or something, so it saved drunk driving, or it saved, I don't know what metrics you use, because they're probably comparing it to metrics that you can't even compare it to, because there's way more people in cars today. And
well, also because there's one of those things where it's like, because like, if let's say that like the average person drank less, like, that might be true. But the drinkers all drank a lot more. It's like this ironic thing. Like, I mean, Camille Paglia talks about it, but like, by raising the drinking age, we helped create binge drinking culture in colleges. Because like, now it's illicit. Now you got to do it in hiding, so there's nobody looking at you. You don't want any leftovers because you don't want to be caught with it. And so you created this thing of like, hey, tonight we're going to get fucked up, instead of like, you want to go to the bar and have a couple of beers? Okay. That turned into, we're going to get fucked up. And that's where you get binge drinking.
Yeah. There's everything causes, just like COVID. I mean, I've talked about it before, like right at the beginning of COVID, the stupid little ideas they passed, like you're talking about the plastic thing, but there was all this stuff of like you had to stop at the front of the store and put a mask on and put gloves on when nobody had masks or gloves on, and it caused this bottlenecking at the front of the store and everybody to handle the same piece of plastic. Like if it really was some supersonic spreading thing that was going to get everybody in 10 seconds, we did everything to make that happen the first few days. If it really was something that spread like a movie disease, it was already over. It was already over, and it was over partially from our stupid ideas.
Yeah.
But
because like all we ever had to do was everything we already knew about respiratory viruses that we learned from every year. There's a flu, like in winter, the cold and flu goes around, and we've learned over all the years of medicine that what you do is wash your hands frequently, cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. If you feel sick, stay home. That's how you fight a respiratory pandemic.
And there is also a law of it. There's a law in it. I forget what the name of the law is. I should memorize what the name of it is, but it's kind of like one of those laws of nature of that you don't stop a respiratory disease. It doesn't get stopped. It's going to do what it does. You can they were talking about initially they tried to use that argument of slowing the spread just so that the hospitals never got overrun.
2 weeks to slow the spread. 2 weeks to slow the spread. Didn't work.
But I remember I had an argument directly with John DeLynn on his page where he said, there's hospitals are getting overrun, no place is going to get overrun. And it was like October of 2021. It was like way after it. And I said, no, they aren't. And he is, doctor say this, doctor say that. And I was like, no, I know. I have a friend who's a nurse right now. And he says the place has been nothing but empty. And it's been empty for a time. And whoever's spreading that stuff is spreading some sort of freak out stuff to try to freak you out because they're projecting that there's going to be extra people getting it. I don't.
No, that's what I mean, like, because I don't know. It's like I have no doubt that here and there were the busy times at hospitals, and maybe like COVID contributed to that busyness. But this idea that it was like this nationwide blanket thing that every hospital everywhere was being completely overrun, like I don't think that was ever the case.
Like how it was in like 1919 or whatever, and they had to actually make sure that every single hospital room was being used. Like that was never the case. I mean, I know people who were like he's at the VA, right? But the VA is just supposedly just for veterans. But of course, if we really were being overrun, that hospital would be getting used.
Yeah, it's not like they turned people away.
Yeah, and no, they're zero. There was zero over there. There was no like going, just like when they got all those extra ships flown over or sailed over to New York for all the extra people, and that they weren't used even the slightest. They didn't put one person in them in New York City. Anyway, going back to the alcohol thing. So the entirety of the mafia and everything we know about the mafia, I guess I could say I wouldn't have all my beloved mafia movies if it weren't for Prohibition. Because almost all of those are about Prohibition and where those mafiosos came from and all that sort of stuff. So that would be a downstream effect of that. I think the entirety of the mafia was pretty bad. Like if you look into the history of that stuff, if you lived in New York City around certain time frames, man, it would not have been fun living around those mafiosos at all.
Well, that's one thing about the Prohibition argument where, like, I mean, I think it's telling that even in Jacob's group, which is predominantly populated by Mormons that are sympathetic with Jacob's position, and he got a lot of pushback, even from faithful Mormons. And when I was a faithful Mormon, I had the same view that alcohol is bad, but prohibition is worse. Like alcohol is a social problem. Prohibition is a bigger social problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, they had an episode on Midnight Mormons too, where they're talking about banning it as well and trying to make arguments for it. But
that's the other, because like I don't know.
Here it is,
guys. But this
Mormons,
I'm curious about.
We're a different race. Dropped just 4 hours ago.
Racism gangster.
This sort of stuff kind of drives me bonkers, but it also kind of proves a point. And what the point it proves is critical fill in the blank anything. It can be done for anything. The game can be played for anything. And then secondly, that little construal that they do to try to say, it just happened on Tim Pool this week with some trans debate, that they try to say the reason that trans people can trans, but a black person can't trans is for the minoritized position, for how they were treated. But that argument is a stupid argument because number one, the trans person was treated a certain way their whole entire life too. So that if that's something that solidifies you, it solidifies that other person too, just as much. But the Mormons can use the argument. The Mormons 100% were otherized and minoritized throughout their whole entire lifespan or life frame or whatever.
I wish I could have clipped it out, but I remember just one of these episodes of Midnight Ward, the Ward Nighters, whatever they're called now, and just cracked me up because Cardin's like, what other religion can claim that they were oppressed in the last 200 years? I'm like, yeah, like if you go back 200 years and stop, you got a point, Cardin. But if you go back before 200 years, well,
but oppression makes binds, man. It binds and blinds as much as morality does. That's been Nietzsche's point, and we've seen it play out hard in these days of minority. Well, I guess Nietzsche calls it ressentiment, and his what does he call it? The slave morality. It's all slave morality. Nietzsche's slave morality. These guys. So I mean, it helps prove that point, but I don't know.
So Joseph Smith was like the OG anti-racism gangster who loved black people and American
He was an
Indians.
emancipationist.
Oh,
Yeah.
before anybody was an
And it was only the anti-Mormons in the name
What?
of science that were throwing racial crap around.
See that kind of thing when they say that before anybody was no, there was an abolitionist thread going back. Basically, as long as there was institutionalized slavery in America, there was an abolitionist abolitionist thread. Suddenly, I forgot how to speak English. It's been happening to me a lot lately.
Wow, it's almost like the anti-Mormon rules once again are falling completely in line. So they were legit saying we were a different race.
Yes. Mormons are the scum of the earth. The Missouri Extermination Order was extremely natural.
Like mules being unable to breed.
They're coarse, rude. These quotes go on for so long.
Does anybody else not notice how much they sound exactly like Bill Reel, John DeLynn, RFM?
They also sound like Cardin Ellis talking about his perceived religious and political enemies. Yeah.
1,300 lynchings in the South
of whites, yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's still Mormons in there.
Yep.
Lynchings. Mormons got lynched too.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to vote in Idaho, really. The Idaho Constitution. So we were not considered white folk. So the KKK was out to get white Republicans and people who opposed it.
I'm going too fast.
That's a little too fast.
Mormons in there. Wow.
Yep. We were not allowed to vote
In Idaho, really?
The Idaho
What? Oh.
So the KKK was out to get white Republicans and people who opposed emancipation, and among them was members of the Church of Jesus Christ. August 22nd, 4 leading Mormon elders today presented a sworn petition to the governor asking a reward be offered for the apprehension of those engaged in the Lewis County massacre.
Did they I feel like they're kind of chicken that they did a radio antenna with the radio zaps coming out of it. They should have done a Moroni. They could have done an Angel Moroni there.
What, didn't they have that on the Midnight Mormon stuff?
Did they? Actually, I don't even remember.
Can't remember
The thing is,
that.
they changed so fast, and it's amazing how quickly you just forget the past.
I didn't. I mean, I don't know when we'll be able to stop calling them Midnight Mormons. Probably about the same time we stop calling the Mormons Mormons.
I think they should call them Ward Wars. Ward Wars.
They did mean that. Like they said in their first episode, they did mean that it's kind of like also hinting at war and ward, something. But anyway, they
Welcome,
keep
ladies and gentlemen,
going.
back to wardradio.com. I'm your host.
There was something kind of funny in this where they talked about like elderberries that Mormons were called elderberries because elderberries are something that were poisonous if you eat 3 of them, good if you eat 1, but poisonous if you eat 3. And that's what Mormons are. If you have 1 or 2 of them in your town, they're good to help you. But if you have 3 or 4, they become poisonous. And then some guy who's named Elderberry actually that got killed. And some, I mean, that stuff's kind of.
I wish I could find the clip or know where it was, but like, because there's an Aqua Teen Hunger Force episode where, like, I don't even remember the episode or what they're even talking about, but Shake is talking about vampires or something. He says, like, they're like Mormons, befriend them or like treat them well, and you've got a friend for life.
Americans happen to be members of the Church of Jesus Christ, and so that helped them to compare the two. So Mormonism Unveiled, they talk about the ritual of baptism. This is so good. Page 184, excuse me, 105 compares the Indians to apes. 184, quote, they would then lead them into the water and baptize them and pronounce their sins forgiven. In this exercise, some of them actually went into the water, and in the water performed the ceremony used in baptizing. These actors assumed the visage of the savage. So they would talk about the rumor that LDS baptisms were nude.
Wow.
They'd say we did it in the nude. They thought this was not only salacious, but it was.
Which, let's be honest, we kind of got to bring that back.
Would be
you know
awesome.
what I'm saying? Like, be a little bit more.
So much of like what critical theory does is like dig up some like weird history that nobody knows or cares about. Nobody even actually treats anybody that way that stems from that thing anymore, if you know what I mean. And saying once upon a time there was this. So then they do the thing from that, fast forwarding, aka therefore vis-a-vis, blah blah blah, whatever. Today we've got structural systemic racism or minoritizing or otherizing or something like that. But I mean, I appreciate that they're showing. I don't know that it was their intent, because I think their intent is to really have the slave morality here. Shame you guys, stop it. Become Nietzschean Mormons, knock it off. But it does just kind of show, and this ties back into Dan McClellan too, because I'm telling you, go watch his series on Under the Banner of Heaven that he did with a guy. If you can handle him just chowing down on popcorn the whole entire time, and that sort of thing just drives me crazy. But he does like a 4 or 5 part series on Under the Banner of Heaven, and you can see him basically kind of starting to try to make the point of Mormons were the minoritized religion. And that was forever I was trying to figure out, like, how can Dan McClellan be holding on to Mormonism if he's trying to act like anti-racist super snob of the planet, And I think the only way he can do it, because he never actually goes into it, because I think the real truth is he's going to drop it at some point in time and like use it whenever it's like most useful. He's going to try to keep it as long as he's running for office, and then at some point in the future he's going to make some announcement of derp over dogma. And but he's really tries to make the argument for Mormonism being the minoritized religion, the otherized, just totally using critical theory,
Critical church theory.
Critical church theory. Did they change their name to avoid bankruptcy?
Is that a claim? Is that a thing that happened?
No, they were just they didn't want to use the word Mormon anymore. And then like every channel, I think like Crowder and everybody, I think anybody, as soon as they get like any sort of clout or money or following or something where you're actually getting people to subscribe, you notice it to kind of just go down. So you got to do a reboot. So you see like everybody at some point in time do a reboot. And part of the reboot thing is just rebooting your algorithm to get another money bump.
Oh yeah.
But, if you're actually pulling in money anywhere, that's why you got to be hardcore like us and not even think about getting any money.
It hasn't worked with Crowder because I haven't seen, because I haven't looked, but because like it used to be that YouTube would be like, hey, you watch Ben Shapiro, here's another one. But I haven't seen anything from Crowder in weeks.
I've watched a couple of them. He had a pretty good. This is something I've been meaning to say, because
what is he called now? It's because it's not Louder with Crowder anymore. So what is it?
I think it's just Steven Crowder. I think.
Oh, that's a good move, I guess.
But Dave Damashek's show, I think it's borne out to be 100% true that still Damashek's better at comedy. Crowder is still better at commentary, if that makes any sense. Like Damashek and Quarter Black are just kind of normies, if that makes any sense. They don't know much about much, and so when they spend most of their show just kind of sitting around talking, I really don't get very much out of it. But their comedy's still gold. But their comedy's almost done 5 minutes into it, And then they sit
Yeah.
around talking for an hour. And then if I listen for a whole hour, I might get 2 or 3 jokes. It's called Crowder House. But Crowder still did a couple really good research things this week on the Maui thing and on Biden stuff going on and on Trump's. I saw like 2 or 3 of them, and he still does better than Damashek and those guys, actual kind of journalistic stuff. And I wish he'd knock off trying to be funny, just like you've always said.
Yeah.
And
Let other people do the comedy.
Yeah.
That thing is like, I don't know. He should have just let what's that guy's name? Dave Landau. Like
Landau. I keep saying
Dave
Damashek.
Landau.
That was a different. That was.
I was confused. I wasn't sure you were talking about
Landau. I meant Landau.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's thing. Yeah, that's thing I noticed with Landau show. Yeah, like you say, like there's the intros that are funny. That thing's like you're right. It's like the dead opposite of Crowder, because like Crowder would start with a skit.
That you
just like, yeah, no,
kind of wanted to skip.
Get to the investigative journalism, please.
Yeah.
And yeah, with Landau, it's the opposite. It's like, all right, a skit. It's like, oh, now.
And then afterwards, it's like, okay, these guys are kind of normies to like listen talk about. And like, hey, what do you think of movies? Movies suck now, man. Yeah, they do, but I used to like them. I did too. Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's the whole episode right there.
Crowder does seem like a terrible person to work with. I 100% agree with that. I would not want to work for that dude. I would want to work for Landau, though, even if they're, But should we stop? We get it. Critical Mormon theory. Don't do it, guys. Come on. It's always enticing. It's like catnip. Everybody's just drawn to it like catnip. To like, if you've got like this thing to start making this claim, and then you can go into history and find some place where your people were persecuted in some way, and so then we can fast forward from that persecution and say, therefore, today we're technically a minoritized group, or some group that should be otherized or something. I mean, I can do it with the Irishness that I have, which I've long believed that my family became Mormon to run from Irishness, and I don't have any way to prove that.
Yeah.
But if I were a critical theorist, I could announce it. But one of the, like, my family's like so Irish, and I didn't know I was Irish. And all these other Irish families that are like just straight Irish pride,
Yeah.
And I didn't know until I got a DNA test. And then I asked my mom, who's actually a big genealogist, that I'm like more Irish than most people running around waving Irish flags. And I think that one of the reasons that I only know myself as Mormon, and Mormon genetically or historically or whatever, ethnically, is because they ran away from the Irish. They used the Mormonism to run away from the Irish. It's because the Irish were very, very persecuted. The Irish need not apply, all that sorts of stuff.
Well, nothing like the term cracker originally applied to Irish, right?
Yeah. And there, like Thomas Sal's gone into great detail about the Irish. You can just even look up, there's like little clips on YouTube about how after the slaves were freed, the Irish had less opportunities for jobs and were paid less on average for like 20, 30, 40 years.
The Irish pay gap.
The Irish pay gap. It's so funny. And guess what? Guess who doesn't get to bitch about any of that? Like my gramps, both of them worked in the mines. I've got a couple songs about it. But my back doesn't hurt because of the mines. My back hurts because of deadlifts. And when I go work out in the gym, I feel like a pussy. Like I really do. Like I sit there and go around like, this is simulacra. This is fake. Like my gramps were real strength and real tough. And this is me being a Ken doll and just doing this stuff to fake muscles to make it look like,
No, because that's thing, like I said, the thing I always struggle with exercise is the part where you don't go anywhere, like, because like seriously, if you say like, hey, let's go ride our bike for 30 miles on Saturday, I'm like, okay, I'll do that. Are we going somewhere? Like, yeah, if we're gonna hey, let's ride our bicycle to this place and then we'll ride our bicycles home. I'm into that. But like, hey, let's watch TV on a stationary bike. I'm like, no, I hate it. I hate it. I got to learn to not hate it, but I hate it. But no, that's the thing. Like, yeah, I mean, when you talk about it, where it's like farmers were all in shape because you spend all day lifting, bending, pushing, pulling, and you pay a membership to go to a place where it's like, hey, we've got this thing that simulates, gardening.
not only stimulates that, like
farming
even
simulator.
even the way you pump your muscles is like we've figured out through science how to make it look like you're tougher than you are. And
Oh, yeah.
actually what we do to your muscles is kind of do some things that kind of make you lopsided in certain ways that make you kind of less effective. Like this is not how you would want to be if you wanted to fight or to hoe or to this is not how
Oh,
you'd
yeah.
shape your body to be actually effective. This is just shaping it aesthetically and visually, which actually kind of makes you
I remember that
weaker.
like when I was a kid, I remember thinking it was weird that like why do Olympic weightlifters look like truck drivers and not like He-Man? You know, none of the Olympic weightlifters look like He-Man. They all look like truck drivers. They all had big guts. They weren't
Yeah.
fat, but they had big guts, you know, and it's like, well, core strength, I guess, is what that is. But like this idea that they had these like defined muscles, like, no, they had a good layer of fat on them. And because you need that fat for the energy exertion, you know,
Mhm.
like you need to have that balance.
The
of
same with a
everything there.
fighter. Like no fighter really, unless they're kind of roided out, because roid will just kind of naturally come the extra swelling along with the added ligament strength and all that stuff. But if you're natty, like the added muscle probably actually makes my ligaments weaker, if that makes any sort of sense. Like so that's why you see like George St. Pierre who look like a little bit leaner and kind of wiry and that sort of stuff. And the funny thing about it is like, because I mean I've always been, it's not a zero, like it's two sides of the same of the, it's two. I've always said like bodybuilding's two different, bodybuilding, weightlifting are two different things, but it's the same coin. So if you bodybuild, you will get stronger, or if you just weightlift, you will get more built. But one's doing one thing and the other's doing the other thing. A weightlifter's lifting weight, bodybuilder weights lifting you, if that makes any sense. Bodybuilder, you're just trying to make it hurt right here, whereas weightlifter, you're trying to make this go up. And that it kind of gets the same results, but it ends up being totally different, especially when you start getting to the extremes of the thing.
Yeah.
So a bodybuilder, like I can put up more weight than most people, but I don't put up as much weight as my best weightlifting self, if that makes sense, because I'm doing a different thing that's more extended out. But one of the things about it is like I remember just being strong, and because I was always a bodybuilder and a lifter, like I remember in the MTC we got to wrestling and arm wrestling and all that sorts of stuff, and I just beat everybody's ass at arm wrestling. And then one day walks in a guy who's like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, "Hey, how's it going, man?" He's like, "What did you do?" I grew up in Nephi. I grew up on a farm, and he was just a wiry dude, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, oh well, hey, should we arm wrestle?" "Oh, I guess I could arm wrestle or something." Like that. This wiry kid who grew up on a farm baling hay, and he put me down like this, like after I had just beat like the whole entire place,
He was drinking a chocolate milk out with his other
he was
hand.
drinking a chocolate milk and all that sorts. And that's just true. It's like if anybody actually did build their body doing the farm work, they would beat my ass. That's all there is to it. But that still doesn't mean that because people do nothing that they'd be able to beat my ass. Let's see here.
I mean, it makes sense because like farmers are literally fighting planet Earth.
Yeah.
Every day you go out and fight the planet.
Well, my grandpa was a beet digger, and they say that's supposedly one of the hardest types of farming there is. And on top of it, his day job was a coal miner. And the dude had a shredded 6-pack at 85, and I'm dead serious. He'd tell me to come up and punch him in the stomach, and I did that, and it was unreal. And let's see here. And all I do, like a lot of the time when I go to the gyms and spend all this time in there, I do feel like a fake simulacra of I'm a fake strawberry, as we talked about before about the strawberries. I'm strawberry flavor. I'm not a real strawberry. I'm just strawberry flavor. But that's all right because girls like strawberry flavor. Let's see here.
That's the thing, like I was in shape on my mission because we rode bikes, and I didn't think about it. Like I remember the first couple months of my mission kicked my ass. I hadn't been on a bike in 4 or 5 years, and I had, I just sat around. I didn't really do any exercise. And yeah, so the first couple of months, like the first 2 weeks in particular, really kicked my ass. But like by the end, like, that was the best shape I was in my life by a long way. I rode my bike to the top of the Oroville Dam. That's the single biggest physical accomplishment I ever accomplished. And that's the thing is like, and I was always like, oh, well, I'll go home. I'm going to ride my bike everywhere. And it's different because like you're home and you've got a car and you don't need the bike. And like, that's things I kind of lament that like, I don't, part of me kind of thought like I should move to a small town and get a bike. And if I had that, then I wouldn't ever worry about diet. I'd just ride my bike and that would be all the exercise I'd need. Because that's how it was when I was on my mission. I didn't worry one bit about how I ate. And it didn't matter because I was riding 20, 30, 40 miles every day, no matter what.
Yeah. Savvy D says powerlifting teases you once you decide to lose some weight and find out you lose some strength for what you can lift. That's totally true. And what happens to certain people who want to get aesthetic is, especially guys who've been longtime lifters, they can't do it because mentally they realize that if they do want to shred down, they've got to cut out maybe over time 25% of their power, and it messes with them mentally. And so anytime they start losing that, they'll freak out and go, I gotta go back on the and you have to, if you want to get shredded, you have to give up on being your most powerful. That's true. Hey, bailing is no joke. I wouldn't call it a joke at all. That guy kicked my ass. People used to work nonstop, 3 a.m. to 10 p.m. We're so spoiled. You can ride a bike in a big city too. What the F is this BS? You ready to see some antinatalism?
Is this real?
Yeah, it's real. Can you hear it?
Is it
My
playing?
parents for having me without my permission.
You hear it?
So my parents
Yeah.
that I sued, they contributed to, conceiving me, and my mother that raised me, she gave birth to me. And that's why I sued them, because I did not consent to being here. Like, I was unaware that I was going to have to grow up and get a job to support myself. And I just didn't consent to that. They didn't try to contact me in any way before I was born to see if I actually wanted to be here. And that's why I sued them. Now, it's different. Like, I know I've said it's like unethical to have children before, but it's different when you adopt, because it's not my fault that they're here. I'm just trying to be a good person and like help them out. You know what I mean? So yeah, if you are pregnant right now, you need to hire a psychic medium and ask your child if they actually want to be here. But keep in mind, if they don't, you need to terminate. Otherwise, they will sue you, because
It's hard to tell. Like, is that person genuine, or is this somebody making like very meta joke?
It's supposedly genuine, at least when it went viral, but it could be a
But
meta
also, like,
joke.
sued where? Like, is there any court in the world that this just doesn't get thrown out immediately? It's like, no, this isn't nothing you can sue for, stupid. And like, here's like this is the thing is like, there's like this girl, like, I have the same thing about people who are like, I didn't ask to be Mormon. Like, well, good news, fucking check out. Like, like, I won't stop you. Like, I can't stop you. If you don't want to be alive, you have an option. Like.
Well, it was just announced yesterday. They got the new numbers out that in Canada, it's moved up to about 7 to 8% of deaths are from euthanasia suicides now. Yeah, that's getting extreme. It's out of control. But I thought that one was funny because going along with the World Health Organization, as we talked about earlier, I mean, I could see that being a thing that you could actually sue for, that you didn't get a psychic to pass off that fetus wanted to be born.
Well,
because according to the WHO, maybe those psychics are real, man.
Well, that's the thing, because that's the other thought I was just having, is like, how cynical and evil would you have to be that job? Like, I'm the pregnancy psychic. Come to me, lady, and I'll tell you if your baby wants to be born or not. That'll be $35 for 15 minutes.
Anybody to make a buck, man, they would do that. But this is one of the things about this. I've mentioned it before, but I mean, I run around the music scene here in Salt Lake, and among the youngsters about up to 20 to 30 or something like that, it's totally in the zeitgeist, talking that way and acting that way and saying I didn't agree to be born, and it would be cool to die on my own terms. And they talk about it, and they sit around talking about it as they smoke their weed. And the girls look at the guy talking about it, going, "Oh, he's so dreamy, talking about death. It's so hot." It's like total like emo, sneaky effort type stuff, but it's real. It's like I've watched it. I've watched it in real time.
Crazy.
Antinatalism.
Also, like, I mean, I wonder if that girl's parents saw that. I mean, I guess they got served with a lawsuit.
Mhm.
But like, because that thing's like, I mean, what's Thanksgiving like after that? You know?
Yeah. But I mean, it's all the eugenics. Have you looked at the Maui fire at all?
So, I mean, just reading BBC headlines, but like, because you said that thing about that the water commissioner guy, and somebody was saying this is the guy that wouldn't release the water, and I didn't know what that meant.
Mhm.
Like, was it like firefighters like, hey, we'd like to load our fire trucks with firefighting water, and he's
They
like,
didn't.
no,
They got there and they
it's sacred.
couldn't. They couldn't. The water was already turned off to like the hydrants and stuff in the area, and the firefighters had gotten there and they didn't have enough water to fight it. And the fire supposedly
was
started
optional,
from
like,
telephone poles that they knew that they had to get fixed. And then of course they're saying it's all climate change now, but it was rickety old telephone
Oh, it
poles.
was like the California fires with the PG&E.
Yeah, and then there was also some areas that they had said, "Hey, we got to clear this stuff out. It's going to cause a fire. There's a fire hazard." Nobody did anything about it. And then on top of that, that weird water commissioner guy had been saving water for a long time because water was super important, water equity, and all that sorts of crap.
Well, that's the thing is like, I mean, because he says, well, the water was sacred to our ancestors, and now hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Hawaiians can go be with their ancestors, and now they're your ancestors too. And I'm sure that they'll tell you what you always heard before is, thank you for honoring the water. I'm so glad I burned to death in a preventable fire, but at least we honored our water. Yeah, this guy.
Meet M. Kaleo Manuel, the official who refused to release water in Maui, contributing to up to 106 deaths. That's what they know so far. There's like supposedly like 1,300 people missing.
Jeez.
Somewhere around there. It's pretty nasty. But where is it? I think I have a video of that guy talking about water equity.
Yeah, you showed me that. I mean, because like that video really, it sounds like Deepak Chopra shit.
Mm-hmm.
But like, imagine if Deepak Chopra was like the health commissioner of your government. Like, I guess that's
totally
where we're
is.
at. Like the WHO, like stuff you showed from the WHO. That's Deepak Chopra shit.
But that's what this all is. It's like all across the board, people are even I'm pointing at you, Midnight Mormons. Like everybody's buying into this crap across the board, and it's creating like a decay just in general in our merit and meritocracy. And
yeah.
Speaking of which, there was a really good episode by Short Fat Taco this week about aristocracy and meritocracy.
I didn't see that one.
Watch that sucker. It's pretty darn good. Where did this go? I'm trying to find. So they made an argument for well-being as based in objective God, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he now thinks that well-being is an objective standard.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing's like, I mean, part of me, I don't know, like poking at Jacob isn't really fair because, like, he's in a trap of his own making, partly because the thing is like, if you set yourself up to be an apologist, then like you can only the only way to back down is to back down from your whole platform and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be out here saying all this stuff, Like I don't really know, but like he's already saying that, That's the thing is like, I mean, that's something I realized a long time ago watching a lot of people like build careers on YouTube, where it's like, like if it's your job to say this, you can never admit to yourself that you're wrong because you have to lose your job to do it. Not to mention like there's 10,000 hours of you on the internet making silly claims, and like so like what is it? You become emotionally invested, or the sunk cost fallacy, that kind of thing, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
it's
yeah,
the
you-
same
you-
thing as that therapeutic.
Yeah, you just have to
the
keep throwing your
therapeutic,
chips in.
cascade. Yeah, sunk cost, therapeutic cascade,
Yeah.
all kind of the same concept.
But that's the thing is because, like, like, I mean, ideally, like, if Jacob were being serious and honest, like, he wouldn't even have to come out and say, you know what, I have to admit that I don't have an objective basis for morality. Like, even if he just, if he just stopped grinding that axe, I'd be happy. If he just dropped it, But also, I don't know if you saw today, somebody today posted a thing about like basically saying the stuff that I said, only a little nicer, about how atheism is not a worldview. Atheism, there's nothing that follows from it, all this stuff. And he basically called Jacob out, and like, but he did a little nicer than me. But it's nice to see somebody did it, but I don't think Jacob responded, But that's the thing is like, because I mean, I don't know. He's in a bind. But I don't so this is the crazy thing about that whole thing. And I don't know, I might have mentioned it before on this show. I don't remember who I talked to or when I talked about it. But it's amazing to me that on the faith thing, Dennis Lang, I agree with him entirely.
Oh yeah, you did mention it last
Yeah,
week.
'cause I've got so many fights with him about politics and stuff. But he's the guy who's like, no, it's faith, stupid. Stop trying to prove it. And I'm like, yes, exactly. That's the trick. Just say, this is my faith. And then, okay, But this is the thing. This is where Jacob's authoritarian streak sneaks in. Because, like, it's not good enough for Jacob to just have his faith. He thinks everyone else should have his faith too,
Yeah.
That's the critical difference.
This guy, I guess he's a writer for Tablet Magazine. This is a really good episode because I mean he's also an atheist, and they got into. I mean, they're just talking about vandalism, culture, and history, just kind of some general stuff. But he gets into Hume, and there's some more detail about Hume that's good because he talks about Hume's view on customs, and then you got to hold on to customs because nobody's got the galaxy brain big enough to drop them, but then you can go adjusting them. There was some sort of like a phrasing that Hume used of like customs, but then adjustments or something like that. And but one of the things he points at towards the end of this, he also talks about E.O. Wilson. E.O. Wilson was one of the first, I'd say the first evolutionary psychologist. And one of the things that guy said is like each species kind of has its own biogrammar. And by biogrammar, he kind of meant like stuff that's going to be that's going to be moral to a lion is going to be different morally to a human. Like you can't go kill all the cubs and then mate with the mom of all the cubs that you just killed in human stuff. But in lion world, that's perfectly fine. But he talks about it's kind of like going to Hume because Hume makes the argument that something in our biology and in us is part of where it's evolutionary. Hume wasn't quite saying it like that yet, but there's just something that's in us in our biological making that does kind of seem to ground in something that we would call objective to us as humans that we can argue and figure out and sort of deal, but it does kind of stem from our evolutionary biology and what's in us and innate in us and that sort of thing. And but those would be different. So it's going to be relative. It's going to be different in a different biological being. It kind of just depends. There's different morality for a spider and a different morality for a monkey. And
like, do you know about tarantula hawks?
Mm-mm.
Have you ever heard of a tarantula hawk?
No.
Apparently, we have them in Utah, not anywhere in the city. But a tarantula hawk. I mean, see if you can pull up an image of one, or maybe I can. But it's like it's one of those like biological realities that like it's like how could there be a god? Is the joke about that. But a tarantula hawk is there it is a kind of moth, and like the life cycle of this moth is that are you pulling it up? You're probably faster.
I haven't. I'm looking at the.
Here, I can do it. I'm almost there. But like it's this hawk, and its life cycle is as follows. It's got this big stinger on its tails. And what it does is it finds a tarantula that's alive.
Is this it?
And then see that big stinger. And what it does is it stings the tarantula and injects it with like some kind of neurotoxin poison thing. And this poison, what it does is completely paralyzes the tarantula, but other than that, it stays alive. And then the tarantula hawk deposits one egg in
And then
the
eats it
tarantula,
from the inside
and
out.
then the tarantula hawk drags the tarantula to a burrow, buries it, and flies away. And then the egg hatches, and while the tarantula is alive, gets slowly eaten to death
Yeah,
by
I've
the
seen
tarantula
some.
hawk larva.
I've seen several type of like wasps that kind of do the same
Yeah.
type of thing to other animals, and it sounds like a nightmare. It's got to be the most
Yeah.
nightmarish way to die in history.
Yeah,
There's no tarantula god. There's no tarantula god.
well, suddenly I think of my late friend who I miss so much. That was Kent Fillmore, the hippie lawyer. He was this truth and justice lawyer guy who lived in a 86 Mercedes Benz that ran on French fry oil with his dog, and occasionally took hard luck defense cases. But he was obsessed with like druid stuff. And I remember one day he told me about like the way the druids would slaughter an animal. And I don't remember all the details, but one of the things was like the way they would do it is that like there would be like a pen, it would be like a line, like, like a, I don't know, something that would like funnel the animal. And at the end of the thing would be something that the animal considers a very good treat, like its favorite thing. And that like part of the way they would slaughter the animal is that the blow would come from behind. And so the animal never saw it coming, and they had all these things about respecting like the death of this creature, which is very different from like, because, there's the other thing is that like the way the druids would set up their slaughterhouses or whatever. I mean, obviously they didn't have slaughterhouses per se, but they would set it up is that the other animals didn't see what was happening to their friend.
Mhm.
They had no idea what was coming. It's kind of, I don't know, I guess it's kind of like Japanese execution. You don't know you're dying until the morning you die. But even better than that, like it just like they call it the blow of mercy. But there's just all that like as far as the animal is concerned, it's just another day, and then bang, so you never saw it coming. All this stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of an interesting way of like how humanity is trying to moralize this thing. Like, well, we got to kill to eat. We got to live. It's going to be a long winter and nothing grows. We're going to have to eat the animals to live. Word of wisdom, Joseph Smith. Only eat meat in times of winter and famine. But you compare that because that's things like, there are other, cultures that like just don't even think about it. Like I saw a video like Facebook knows that I like watching weird food videos. And I saw one where some lady in Asia chopping the legs off of a giant crab while it's alive. And it's funny because like, the last thing she does is chop it down the middle of its brains and kills it. Where it's like, couldn't have you done that one first? Like, why'd you do the legs?
That's how the halal killing they do. All the
yeah,
they have to bleed them out and stuff like that.
yeah, you have to bleed it out.
I remember in
well, that's like in halal, it has to be conscious. It can't be stunned. It can't be asleep. It has to be awake and conscious when you kill it. Hey, there we go.
See the Mormon or point of view. You're about to aggressively push the boundaries of the word of wisdom, and it's one of those places to come.
Shuhaskaria, yeah, shuhaskaria. Endless meat on a stick.
Endless meat on a stick. Yeah, the Christopher Hitchens in his book God Is Not Great, he's got that whole second chapter about the diversion on the pig. And I understood that one totally because I heard a pig get killed inhumanely in Mexico and listened to it cry. It was on Christmas Day and just listened to it cry for 2-3 hours. And it sure sounded human to me. And that's part of the thing he talks about in Digression of the Pig of why pigs become such a thing in religious world, because something does seem so human or demonly about
oh yeah, well that's things like, here I am petting my cat, and everybody knows, like every cat owner has heard the thing about like, if I were to die and nobody found my body, my cat would not think twice about eating my face.
Yeah.
How about it?
I just watched Puss in Boots last night. You should watch that. It's pretty good.
Is it good?
Although it still does the current day tropes, as I said. Like it's still like this this guy's gonna wrestle with his toxic masculinity and newfound family stuff. But like I was telling you guys this morning, it's better done, and it made me kind of wonder why Hollywood just wasn't as good as at its propaganda anymore.
Yeah.
Like they used to be good at propaganda, and now they're just ham-fisted as crappy Christian movies.
Yeah. Well, the mistake of toxic masculinity isn't that, like, the thing that's true about toxic masculinity is that there are very shitty men in planet Earth. The part that they get wrong is that it's culturally ingrained and encouraged. Like, no, it's not.
Well, then the other part that they got wrong is like the cat in this one was able to reassess himself and then still be a hero, whereas in almost all those other ones that they got a fetish for, the guy needed to reassess himself and remove himself, kill himself, die, or something like that, get out of the way or something like that, you know. So I want to see some of these comments. As someone with faith, I have zero interest in a watered down believe despite the evidence faith.
That's what faith means. Just deal with it.
I think he's had some contestation with the way you describe faith, but
this is one of those things where they say like, well, no, faith isn't believing without evidence, except that's what it is in practice, in reality. The way we use those words, like, because like everybody says like, oh, do you have faith, like, as missionaries, like, well, you have faith that the sun will rise in the morning. Like, no, I don't. That's not a faith thing. It's completely different. You know, like I had faith in the efficacy of ordinances. And because the fact is that, like, it doesn't matter where you live on planet Earth. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are. It doesn't matter what your culture is. It doesn't matter anything. The sun comes up every morning. And we also understand why that is. But the thing about things like that people have faith in is that they're not objective. They're not universal. It doesn't matter where you are in the world.
Experiential.
People have different experiences. Yeah.
I'm fine with people kind of saying like, this is my experience, as long as they're willing to accept that I have not had that experience. And in some cases, like with Mormons, I've tried to have your experience, and it didn't happen for me.
Exactly. You know,
but I accept it, especially after mushrooms. And I hate saying this because like I don't like using mushrooms like a religious thing, but the first thing I said the first time I did them was, okay, I believe that people believe that they've felt and seen things now. Because before that, I just couldn't even get it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even register that maybe the walls might open. And I sense like just from like extreme exercise or something, I get that from yoga or praying or whatever, it might seem like the world cracks open to you. And maybe that's all something. But I totally didn't used to understand it at all. And I think Dawkins is basically how I used to be. It's just like, Dawkins, you've just never experienced a little bit of a hallucination. And that's all, you know, but I believe that people believe that they've had their experiences. I believe that you believe it.
So what about faith in relationships with other people? Like, are you talking about like faith, like I have faith in my wife, or I want to be faithful to my wife? Because I mean, that's just a different usage of the word. Like, you know, lots of words have multiple meanings. But I'm talking about like religious faith. Because here's the other thing about faith, about trying to make faith an evidence-based thing. Because like I try to explain to Jacob and everybody, where it's like, because here's the thing, I believe in the classical liberal concept of freedom of consciousness and freedom of religion, you know, those kinds of things. And here's the deal: if you say this is my faith, I can't touch it. I have nothing to say about that other than I don't believe it. It's not my faith. But if you say, oh no, this is a universal fact of existence, well, now you're entering the realm of empiricism, and I get to fight you on it.
Well, so I hope I'm not talking like out of school, because he hasn't been on for a while, because he's kind of been a bit turned off.
Here he goes. Faith is trust. Faith is in trust. That's a different usage. All right. That's not like I have a faith in the Book of Mormon. That's not the same thing as I have faith in my wife, as in I trust my wife. No.
So
you don't believe that your wife has a supernatural origin like you believe that the Book of Mormon has a supernatural origin.
Kevin's been talking to me about he's been trying to kind of, his son just went on a mission. He's been kind of doubling into this religious aspect and stuff. And so he called me and talked to me. He's been kind of like offline a bit, but he told me that he's been just putting stuff into practice and getting really good and making sure that he's following like a lot of different rules, and just somewhere inside him, he can't explain it. He can't explain why. He just feels different, and it's a real feeling, and it's a real different thing, and it's just real, and I feel it, but I don't have any other way to explain it. Like when I practice it and put it all into practice, I just feel this different thing. And like I hear all that and I go, well, screw you, Kevin. This is all bullshit. You know,
exactly.
I don't do that. Like, I totally follow you, man. If that's all working and feeling for you.
Yeah, like you have my blessing. Godspeed, Kevin. Like I tried it and it didn't work, you know. But when somebody else says like, hey, like just earlier this week, I was playing video games with my kids' friends in England. And I was talking to this kid, he's only 23. And he was a Jehovah's Witness. And he doesn't believe anymore. And I talked to him for like a couple hours about this. And like it was really stark how similar our experiences were. Because, like I didn't even ask him, I didn't prompt him on it or anything like that. But he talked about, he's like, praying never worked for me. And I'm like, I had the exact same feeling, because like the Jehovah's Witnesses are just like the Mormons. They say, pray, the power of prayer. And all these people give up and they give their testimonies of prayer, and I heard 10,000 of them growing up. And I tried and I tried and I tried and I tried and I tried. And I just, it never did the thing that it seemed to do for other people. And, and this kid as a Jehovah's Witness had this exact same experience. It's like prayer just didn't work, And that's things that, he's also a lot like me where he's like, like his whole family is still in for the most part, and like, and they're nice, like, they haven't disowned him or anything like that. And he's just like, like they're welcome to it. It just didn't work for me, He's not angry at them. He's not out there trying to tear them down, And like, so there's that the kind of thing where it's like, because like when Mormons get together and say, hey, prayer works for me, and another one says, hey, it worked for me too. Okay, it sounds like you guys have a faith there, But like, here's this other kid on the other side of the world who got taught the same ideas about prayer as I did and had the same experience as I did. Well, that didn't work, Like, there you go. I mean, and that's what makes it faith, because faith is not like things like math or electricity, or auto mechanics, where like it doesn't matter where you are on planet Earth, Like it's not like there's a place on Earth where you can put water in your gas tank and your engine starts. Like doesn't matter where you are, you need gasoline, Whereas prayer is kind of different. Like it seems to be like, well, it works for some people, it doesn't work for others. I don't know.
One of the things that I think is a bit rare about me, maybe not rare in reality, but rare in admittance, is that I'm maybe one of the rare ex-Mormons, I think maybe you are too, who's very openly admits that no, I was never very converted. And no, I never had some major experience. No, I never totally got into it. Yes, I always like, what the heck is this stuff talking about? It seems like a cartoon to me, and I'm not getting it. I'm not grasping it. I'm not seeing what everybody else is seeing.
Yeah, I was a believer, but like I think you and I have talked about this before, where we had the same thing. Like I was a believer, but I never used the I know formulation in testimony. I never said, I know this church is true. I know the Book of Mormon is true. I know Joseph Smith is a prophet. I never used that formulation.
I always used it as a Spanish-speaking missionary, and in my mind, I compartmentalized it. And I didn't give a testimony in English, I don't think, in my life. Maybe on like the return, my return for my farewell or something like that. But I didn't do it all through my youth. I didn't do it anywhere, and it's because I didn't think that way. I never offered it up to a friend. I never once said, hey, I totally believe in this thing. And actually, most of my times, if I ever did confide in anybody, it would be a little bit of, what do you think about all this stuff? You think those guys up there believe this stuff? What do you think of, And I'd still be kind of like mum's the word on that sort of deal. But this is what weird thing I'm getting at with this, is that even with all that, maybe from a point of saying that I don't believe it, I can step back and also say there were some times that I can only talk about or feel in hindsight now that there were very particular feelings about being a Mormon in a place around some people or on your mission or something that was very unique to the time, and you wouldn't be able to know what it is unless you were experiencing it or something like that.
Yeah.
And a Mormon would say like, that's the spirit or something like that. I'd say maybe it's like the unique experience at that moment, but like there's little moments I'm never going to get back, but sometimes I can sit there and go, there was some interesting things about being a guy on a mission and just doing the thing and being around all the guys and feeling the thing to go do it, even though I still won't like claim that to be what maybe Jacob or somebody would want to claim it to be for me. It's a feeling, but
my most woo 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 experience I ever had as a missionary is like, because that things like I can tell the story in the Mormon way and it sounds all ooh woo woo, and then I can just pick it all apart using logic, which is exactly what happened to me on my mission. And what it was is it was about halfway through my mission, and like we were tracting one day or something, and we ran into a lady, and she was like, "Oh, come in, elders," and and she mentions like, "Oh, I was part of the church, but I'm not anymore," something something something, yada yada. And like here's the spoiler. Looking back, I say like, "Oh, this woman was like BPD," you know. But like at the time, I just kind of recognized like this lady reminds me of my mom. But when we went to the priesthood correlation or whatever it was, like we'd go have the meetings with the local leadership, and we say, "Oh yeah, we ran into Sister so and so," and they're like, "Oh yeah." And the bishop pulled us aside, and he's like, "Listen, I'm not going to tell you what's up, but Sister so and so was excommunicated, and I don't think that you should talk to Sister so and so." And it's funny because like, I mean, I've always been hard headed, and I just told the bishop straight up, I'm like, "Bishop, that's not your call. It's not your jurisdiction. Like your jurisdiction is members of the ward. My jurisdiction is non-members of the ward. She's a non-member. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. You can't tell me not to talk to her." And he didn't push it any more than that. But there was, one day that like, and I was the senior companion, and like this area, like, I tell this story a lot of times about my mission where we had nothing to do. And this was the area where like we went out all day. We tracked it for hours. We went to the park. We were out all day and did not talk to anybody just because there's nobody to talk to. Like, either nobody was home because it was suburbia and everybody like, everybody worked, or they just ignored us, or they, like all that stuff. And like we were bored out of our wits. And
keep telling the story. I can hear you.
Yeah. And we were going nuts with nothing to do. And like, and I was like, well, let's just go home and plan. That was kind of our thing. It's like, it's hot outside. There's nothing to do. Let's just go home. And our excuse for going home is that we'll go home and plan. But like, as I was riding home, I kept stopping and thinking like, no, there's got to be something. There's got to be something. And we were like halfway home, and I had this thought of like, oh, let's go check on Sister so-and-so. And I say, my companion, like, "Hey, let's go check on Sister so-and-so." And my companion at that time, he just did whatever I said. Bless his heart. Not that I was that pushy, but he's like, "Okay." And so we went over to Sister so-and-so, and we knocked on the door. And like, it was one of those things where like, I was like half of a knock. And the door throws open. She goes, "Elders, I prayed for you to be here. I need a blessing." She didn't tell us. She was like tears streaming down her face. She didn't tell us what was up. I didn't ask. I just went in and I gave her a blessing. I don't remember what I said, just whatever. And she said, "Oh, thank you, elders. Thank you so much." And, riding away, I was like, wow, that's crazy. I had this prompting to go see this lady, and she said that she prayed for us to be there. But then here's the other side of it. I knew intuitively that this lady was prone to this kind of thing. Every time, like every other time we saw her, she was crying. She was one of these, like, everybody knows this. Everybody knows the kind of woman that is always in a crisis, And the fact is that I had 10,000. Oh, let's try this. Oh, let's try this. Oh, let's do this. Oh, let's do this. And they went nowhere. They did nothing, And like, yeah, that one was a hit in the roulette wheel of missionary promptings. That was the hit. But the fact is that there's, 36 numbers on that wheel, and almost every other time you don't hit your number. And that was the closest thing I had to an thing. Other than that, like nothing supernatural happened to me. I had nothing that I could point at and be like, I don't have an explanation for that.
Yeah, well, I'm not even meaning supernatural. I'm kind of just talking about a feeling that maybe other people would have called like a spiritual feeling that tells you this is true. And it's maybe like a moment of being with your band of brothers on your mission and just kind of realizing you're all sitting there shooting the shit and you're all buddies out on this hard thing together, and you just have this feeling and like, I'll never have whatever that was again anywhere. Or being a kid and going on like a stake conference where we go out for like a week and it's just all kind of pure and friendly and all these different friends and all these different things getting together, and we're all in a world where we can kind of like be the same and trust each other and know each other and all that sorts of deal. And whatever that was, I'll never have that again. And it was a special kind of thing and a feeling in the world and that sort of thing. And I can admit that was there and say, yeah, there was something special and unique or cool about that. Sure, maybe it's there in like other religions or whatever, but it still never qualified for me as like some sort of affirmative experience, if that makes sense. It was an experience, and it's an experience I can't get back, and I know I can't, at least that way. Maybe there'd be other ones, but
nobody asks, Flip, did you ever consider that the bishop had warned you about this lady and his warning was a foreshadowing of your own excommunication? No, I didn't consider that, and I don't see the connection now. Because here's the thing about my excommunication is that, like, my excommunication happened basically because, like, I didn't directly ask for it, but okay, thing one, I broke the rule. And I knew I was breaking the rule when I broke it. And it's not that I felt good about breaking the rule. I didn't. I felt guilty for breaking the rule. But number two, I always had the attitude, like, because for me, I went to the temple and I made the deal. Like, that the deal is the deal. You covenant to do these things. And one of the things you covenant is to follow the rules. And one of the rules is if you break the rules, you have to be disciplined. So I immediately confessed and said, I broke the rule. And it was funny because so many people, both inside and outside of the church, were like, why'd you confess? You could have ridden this out. And I was like, what do you mean, why? Because I promised to, like, I always saw it like I took the deal seriously, And the other thing is that, because like when I was excommunicated, I remember them asking me, like, what do you think about your priesthood? What do you think about your testimony? And I was totally honest with them. I was like, I don't know. I don't know anymore. Like, I remember telling them, I mean, I've said it a lot of times, but like 3/4 into my mission, I was in this place where, like, what I thought then is, if any church is true, it's the Mormon church. But if the Mormon church was ever true, it must be an apostasy, and that's kind of like I was banging this around in my head, and I was totally open with that. Because that's the thing is, like, I could have, like, all I had to do was say different things. Basically, if I had just not said what I really, really, really believed, I wouldn't have been excommunicated. But I got excommunicated because I went in and I said, look, I broke the rules, and frankly, like, I'm not that convinced of this stuff anymore, and so they exed me, and I mean, that was that. But like, because the other thing is, like, when I got excommunicated, I got this letter that said all the things I needed to do to get back in. And one of them was that I had to go visit my stake president once a week, which I did for about 6 months. And I just remember, like, and God bless my stake president. He was a wonderful guy, great leader. Like, that's one thing back when I was more engaged with the ex-Mormon world, because they always talk about, Mormon leaders are terrible. And here's the things, I saw some bad leadership on my mission. I absolutely saw bad leadership on my mission. But I can say that all of my bishops, all of my stake presidents that I ever dealt with, I've got zero complaints about. They were all wonderful men. Like, they did a great job with me. No complaints about them. And my stake president, there was one day that I was in this meeting and he's like, you got to come to church. And I'm like, because I wasn't coming to church, like I went to church like once after my excommunication. And I remember saying these exact words to my stake president. I said, President, I haven't turned my back on the church, but I just don't want to do it right now. And he said, okay. And that was basically the end of it. Like, I never went back to church as a faithful person ever again after that, because, and now I'm at the point where it's like, oh, I don't even believe in God anymore. So that's that. But, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I feel like I handled my excommunication as somebody who really, really believed in the disciplinary process of Mormonism, And I thought it was really weird to me. Like I said, like, even people inside of the church were like, A, why did you confess? B, why did you tell them you stopped believing? Like, you didn't have to get excommunicated. You could have talked yourself out of this without any, you could have very easily talked yourself out or talked your way out of an excommunication. It's like, for me, it was always like, I'm not going to lie. I'm the same person then as I am now. I'm going to say what I think,
Yeah.
But the other thing, though, about the spirit and the burning in the bosom, one thing, because long before it became a trope in ex-Mormon world, I remember having the thought to myself that I have had what what people got up in testimony meaning and described as the Holy Ghost and the Spirit. What's that? What's that music? Is that you?
Sorry, it was on the phone. Sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I just because I don't know what's
No,
but
keep
like
going.
long before it became a trope, I remember having the thought to myself, like, this thing that people get up and testify and say, I prayed and felt the Spirit, like, that's the feeling I got watching Jean-Pierre Jeunet movies, you know, like literally that thing's like, no, I had that feeling watching the climax of a very good movie, you know, and I had that thought, like, wait a second, like, because like that French movie had nothing to do with God or religion, but it sure caused a burning in my bosom, you know. I absolutely had that experience.
Yeah, so I saw Chris Rice was asking about your whole story. I got other little crap lined up. It's kind of potpourri if you want. I mean, this might be as good
I like
time as
potpourri.
any to talk about stuff. You'd rather do potpourri? I mean, it'd
Oh,
be as good
whatever.
a time as any to
Wait,
if you
who's
wanted to
asking
go.
about what?
Chris Rice is asking about your full story and if you ever said it somewhere.
Of how I got excommunicated?
No, just your whole story.
Oh, my whole story? My whole story is I wonder if it's still there.
He did do one of John Larson's. John Larson
Mormon Express
had a whole separate podcast where they did Mormon Voices. That's what it was.
Yeah, Mormon
where they were
Expression.
just gonna like rack up a bunch of
I wonder if I've
stories, and Flip
Let's
did
see.
one of them. Like Lindsay Hansen Park did one of them. Flip did one of them. A couple other people did another them.
Let's see if I can find it.
Don't you have to pay for the archive of that or
No.
something?
That's not it.
I'd be interested to hear Christopher's experience with the Spirit, because Christopher's not coming from an LDS place. He's a different type of Christian. What is it again?
So here
And I know what it's so you were on and you never know.
I'm in one of the Mormon Expression Voices.
In today's things that you have believed on.
I'm trying to find it right now. Sorry.
I don't want to horrify anybody. Eating a disorder is.
I wonder if I've been. No, I don't think they would have.
They might have, man.
I'm one of in the 40s. The Mormon Expression Voices. I'm in episode 40 something. I thought.
Hello.
That's not me.
Anyway.
So like here's if you just Google Mormon Expression Voices, johnlarson.org, there's the catalog. See if I can. Okay, I'm gonna go through them. This is very bad podcasting.
We'll do some other potpourri stuff in the meantime while you're looking for it, unless you want to tell the story again. Check this out. Body positivity is for women, not lazy white guys with dad bods. And
okay, I'm episode 48 of Mormon Expression Voices.
Keep that memorized for when people ask.
How do I can put it in the.
Yeah, put it there and pull it up.
Join
right now, I'm
chat.
looking at body positivities for women, not for lazy white guys. But I love this. There's some feminist math here. We are sorry, but we can no longer allow comments. While 85% of you are wonderful people, the other 25% were far too frequently brigades and troll farms. Their abusive comments have traumatized our moderators to the point where it became a workplace safety and insurance issue. 85%, 25%. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Third eye crossed. Okay. Here it comes in the YouTube comment section. Maybe, if this works.
Oh, you put it in the comment section?
There you go.
Okay, it's in the YouTube comment section.
Like, this is more than 10 years ago. I wonder if I've said anything.
You should re-listen to it.
Agree with. Yeah, I wonder. I haven't heard it since I made it. But yeah, I did I tell my story there.
So this is a sublation socialist. I know. I made a song, aggressively misunderstanding class struggle, and it goes something like this. And it's that what's it, Anthony whatever song. And then I commented on it. These stupid trolls. If only some vanguard would do it right.
Exactly.
They got this guy. He's going to be going on some socialist podcast next week, though. James Lindsay from the start of it was
Good
dubious.
for
He's like,
him.
he calls like this is where MAGA becomes class conscious, and then they start getting all Marxist too, or something like that. But who knows? Who knows if it's gonna be like that or not? I don't know if the guy knows one way or the other what any of that stuff is. But.
Yeah, like this is one of those guys I kind of wonder, like, is he walking into the lion's den? Because, like, you know, he's just a guy with a farm in Virginia, and he, you know, like 10 million other people, like, hey, I wrote a song here that's on the internet, and he's the guy who hit that lottery of like, hey, everybody's like, look at this guy, you know,
Yeah.
like, but just like lottery winners, most of them end up miserable. Like,
Yeah.
I wonder, I wonder.
But all those socialist podcasts are like, hey, did you notice that everything you said there, us Marxists got the answers for you, dude. Look at police officer tackled, brutally attacked by hammer-wielding man fighting for her life. They should have gotten a LCSW.
Send a social worker. You should send. I know the social worker. She's an old friend. She's an ex-Mormon. She's morbidly obese. She would have done a great job here.
Oh, on that Bogosian podcast, the very end of it, one of the interesting things he talks about, going back to the well-being thing, is he kind of starts pointing out some things like, okay, what if you could eradicate from the world something like bipolar disorder or something like that? But what if all sorts of our art that you didn't even realize came from bipolar disorder?
Oh yeah.
You know, like what's the well-being in that? Like where?
Yeah. No, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. When I was a kid, I got obsessed with chess, and particularly like I got into chess, and you know, like everything, I went to the library and checked out books, and I read all these books about the history of the chess masters. And as a 16-year-old, I was like, wow, the number of people, like the correlation between being very, very, very good at chess and dying gibbering in a gutter in total madness is very high. There's a big correlation between being mentally ill and being an excellent chess player, you know, which is terrifying and interesting.
I think ADHD is one of the weirdest things in the world because, like, I don't know that there is such a thing, you know. But what I mean is, like, what it probably means is those were men who should have just been being men instead of trying to be forced into factory type jobs and factory type school their entire lives, and that's about it. And they would have been successful in a world that wasn't that.
When I was 14, I got diagnosed with ADHD, and I walked out of that clinician's office thinking, like, no, school is just boring. There's not something wrong with me. School sucks.
Yeah, it's the school and it's the longhouse that sucks. It's not the person that sucks. So I think they have whatever they're talking about, but what they have is very low ability to deal with the longhouse.
Yeah,
that's all it is. You know?
Yeah, no, that's what it was for me. Because that thing is like, you know, the whole idea is like, you know, well, people with ADHD struggle with school, and this is the exact thought I had then, and I've been having the same argument all along. Well, school is a place where people go to learn things. My problem with school was that I wasn't learning anything. Like science, I didn't have ADHD in science because I learned things.
They had those schools that were working really well for inner cities in New York, and they were like boys' schools. And what they did is like the first half of the morning is they would work on like an airplane engine or something like that, and then they'd have sort of classes about Greek warfare, and when they do the Greek warfare, they really would give them like little foam swords and things to fight each other with, but they'd have to answer the questions first and do the thing. And the school was just being massively successful when they let the kids actually rough each other up and that sort of stuff. And for kids with ADHD, they were off the charts successful because of course those kids could have learned like that all along. And of course, it got shut down by feminists.
Well, I remember specifically having this exact thought and 10,000 other ones like them. But like in school, where some kid like didn't want to pay attention, the teacher's like, "You need to pay attention." Like they're learning Greek myths, and the teacher's like, "You know what? Like, don't you want to go to college?" And the kid's like, "No." And the teacher's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And he's like, "I want to build motorcycle engines." She's like, "Well, but you want to go to college, don't you?" He's like, "No. Like, I've already built 3 motorcycle engines. I've got a torn up, like, I want to go home and work on my motorcycle engine." And I even remember as a kid thinking, like, I was enjoying the Greek myth stuff. I thought it was interesting. But like, I was looking at this kid, like, this kid doesn't give a fuck about Greek myths. Don't make him do it. You know what I can't do? Build a motorcycle engine. Let this kid go build engines. Like never mind making a school where he learns. Like, the ideal thing would be make a school where this kid learns motorcycle engine. That would be the ideal thing. Would take all of that government and bureaucratic energy and just make a place for kids like him to go learn to build engines. But the better thing to do, like in absence of that, let him go home. That kid was so much better off in his garage with his motors and his tools. But instead, the system's like, no, you need to go learn Greek myths and then do a crossword puzzle on fucking Perseus. Like, and I remember as a kid being so angered by that. Like, here's this kid who's doing real shit with his life. Like, I liked the dumb academic side of school. I liked that stuff. But this kid had zero interest in him. And yet they're trying to fit that square peg in a round hole. They're trying to smash a motorcycle repairman into an English lit graduate, you know? And that was another thing that I remember realizing in high school is like a major problem with school is that it's run by academics. And academic, the etymology of the word literally means for the sake of knowledge. And the thing about academics is like academics love knowledge for the sake of knowledge. That's their nature. And so they're completely baffled by somebody who is not interested in knowledge for the sake of knowledge. They're interested in knowledge for the sake of making their motorcycle go. You know?
Yeah.
And the fact is the world is full of people who want their motorcycles to go. And there's enormous value in somebody who can make your motorcycle go. Let them do it.
Yeah. One of the things with it all too is that I don't know, with the ADHD stuff and people. Well, so when I was a teacher of kids, before I left, because I went back to church just for a little bit after my mission. I didn't last very long after my mission, like probably just under 2 years. But I was a teacher of like the 12-year-old boys, and I could get them to answer questions till the end of time as long as they left me there. All I had to do was bring in. This was church. Shouldn't have been doing this. All I did was bring in a basketball hoop, put it on the door, and a little basketball and some candy. And I said, whoever answers the question gets a shot. If you make the shot, you get a candy. And so then all I did is they were fighting over who answered each question. And then throw the ball to them. They take a shot, miss the shot, no candy. We'll make a shot candy or something like that. And it was the easiest thing on earth.
Thing is, you put somebody who went to college and has a teaching certificate in that room and look at the nightmare. That's like, no, sit in there. Okay.
I guarantee you I got those kids to answer more questions and know more things than any teacher who'd come before them or anything like that, because they were fighting to know the answer and be the first one to hear the answer and all that stuff, to be the one who shot the basketball.
One of my favorite members when I was a missionary was a motorcycle guy. He built motorcycles, he rode motorcycles, and like if they tapped him for leadership, he would have done it because he's that kind of guy, and he would have been great at it for sure. That's one thing that annoyed me about being a missionary is the sheer number of bishops who were chiropractors. Where it's like that's weird that you have two religions.
Oh man.
It's like you get paid for one of them and then you pay to be in the other. That's weird.
So I'm trying to find this stand-up comic girl. I saw a little clip of her, but she was talking about going off of the pill, and she made the joke because I brought this up. I brought this up before, that like all these different women who are both on the pill and SSRIs. Like, how many women have I come across in the past 5 years that are both on the pill and SSRIs? And if that's the case, who am I even dealing with? Like Mary Harrington said that whenever we started going on the pill is whenever it was like the end of that was like the true start of transhumanism. Yeah. Because it was the first time we were breaking something that worked to but it alters the person, and then the SSRIs alter the person. And this lady in her stand-up comedy said the thing. think I might have found it. Here it is. I did find it. Okay. One second. Coming on up. Are you listening to yourself?
Did you hear that?
Yeah. Are you listening to yourself on the thing?
No, yeah, I was just making sure I got the right thing before I closed it. That's weird that you heard that. I thought it would only share it if I shared.
No, I just heard it in the background.
But that still works. It came through in my headphones. But anyway.
She said the joke there.
Okay. Because I'm not hearing this.
You're not hearing what I got up?
Yeah, well, hit play. No, I'm not hearing that.
You're not?
What happened? How did you hear the thing that you weren't supposed to hear, and I'm not hearing the thing you are supposed to hear?
I heard it in the background of your thing, but hold on a second. Son of a gun. Present, share screen, Chrome tab, share audio.
I'm getting...
All right, now are you hearing it?
No, wait.
Birth control.
Yes,
Okay.
I heard birth control.
Where's she at?
And this is what she says in one of her stand-up routines, cut 10.
Love to get off birth control because I'd love to meet me. You know, I've heard that when you get off birth control, you're just like, has anyone in here gotten off of birth control? You have right here. Oh, a lot of us. Okay. All right. How did that go for you? You broke up with your boyfriend of 6 years. These are the stories I'm talking about. This is what I've heard about. You stop doing birth control and you don't.
Your sense of smell changes.
Your sense of smell changes.
By then.
Oh my God. So wait, what did your ex-boyfriend smell like before when you were on birth control, and what did he smell like once you got off birth control? You're like, when I was on birth control, he smelled like my future, and when I got off, he smelled like the past.
Yeah, you did, because suddenly
But I think that, like, really, like, what are we dealing with? Because we know there's all sorts of stuff about women in different parts of the cycle will find more masculine men attractive, and then in other parts they'll find more twink men attractive. And these days it seems like all women are just into twinks, and it might all just be that would the church more work better for people who are motorcycle builders and leadership? I think so. I mean, I think Boy Scouts, getting rid of Boy Scouts was one of the dumbest things that they ever did, because I mean, they got to get something like that back and going. Get rid of the risk aversion everywhere, man. Get rid of the longhouse. No more longhouse. I think this was like some good commentary on conservatives and their tastes. You already saw it earlier, Flip, but we'll reread it. Can you see it? You want to read it? You might read it faster.
Wait, can you make it? I can make it bigger.
I can't.
Every mainstream conservative, for the most part, can accurately identify the big cultural problems. Almost none of them can correctly identify the solution to those problems. It's far more profitable for them to traffic in outrage reactionary content. You can hate on Disney all you want, but you can't come close to making a film better than any one of their latest flops. That's not true.
I think it's true of who she's talking crap on.
No, that's
like
true.
the Daily Wire and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. The best conservatives in media can out-argue almost anyone. To a rational person, logic will always beat emotional strawman arguments. But the average person is not rational; they're emotional. That's true.
I think you got to read that first sentence, and I'll go to the next one.
As the world becomes more insane, the hope is that your average person. Oh wait, where'd it go?
Second line.
Is that your average person will see the truth more obviously than before. But the biggest problem remains in the fact that nearly every conservative in media, with very rare exceptions, has absolutely terrible taste. That's kind of true. They lack creative talent, and what's worse is they don't know it. They can't discern a cheesy photo from a world-class photo, a bad screenplay from a good screenplay. Artists in general are far more liberal, and they are largely more in touch with, and in many cases led by, their emotions. When it comes to creating art and stories that move you, this is invaluable. There's I feel like, I want to say it was Dennis Miller on Bill O'Reilly like 25 years ago, but it might be wrong. But I remember like some kind of conservative talking head show was interviewing a guy, and they asked this question like, why is there no conservative art? And I want to say it was Dennis Miller, but I may be wrong. But he said something like, because conservatives have no imagination. and it's kind of true, there's really something there.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to it. I mean, I know it was them. Part of why we're in this whole culture mess is it was them who left aside the arts, and all this stuff seeped in through the arts, and it was them who abandoned it, and it was them who said it wasn't important, and it was them who didn't think anything of note could come out of that world. And one of the things that's been more funny to me, I was talking to you all about it earlier, just to repeat it here, is that the left used to be better at it too. They've started sucking too. Like, you could say they were better at it, but they've turned into such hacks.
No, what happened is as the left became religious, their art started to suck.
Yeah. They became real bad at propaganda. And part of me just laments that the Hollywood propaganda just isn't better propaganda like it used to be. Like, it used to be like, okay, you're totally sending a message here, but it's like laced inside of a good show like The Wire or something like that.
No, what happened exactly? I mean, I remember in a Mormon Expression episode from 10 plus years ago, it was one that I wasn't on. It was one I was only listening to. And it's funny because these little moments stick in your memory. But they were talking about why is Mormon art so bad? And I don't know who it was, but some lady said, well, one thing that art has to be good is challenging. And within a Mormon religious framework, you can't challenge anything. This is why the leftist art has become so bad, because you are no longer allowed to challenge anything. All you can do is proselytize. All you can do is uphold the faith.
Well,
and
he says that the religious art might be used to be good back in the day. There's been a lot of times through history where religion was the thing that's challenging, and it might be getting back to that, because religion is the thing that really is getting back to being oppressed or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was just listening today that a lot of people don't realize, like, the revolutionary reactionaries in the Spanish Civil War were actually the conservatives. Like, there's a lot of stuff that was a little backwards in history that people don't understand. And I was watching The Completionist, and he just did a whole thing on that video game Blasphemous. Have you ever seen that game?
Mm-mm.
Blasphemous is like a game. It's like a side scroller, like Castlevania or something like that, but it's all just full hardcore Andalusian Spanish Christianity, like gore film, like type stuff, really based on the real Catholic crazy visual arts of the time frame, and the stuff that just gets, I mean, it's almost gory and that sort of stuff. It's a real interesting looking game, and I heard it's hard, and I don't know if I want to play it all the way through just to see it, but just look at the imagery from that game and you'll be like, oh my gosh. But it's so much of the art from Spain in that sort of time frame is so hardcore, but there's something so cool about it too. There's crazy Catholic art. Let me pull up.
It's funny, talking about art and culture. I decided this week, I don't know why, but over the last couple of weeks, I'm like, okay, I'm going to revisit modern Star Wars. And I just sort of halfway watched the 7, 8, and 9, episodes 7, 8, and 9. And then I came back to Obi-Wan because I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes of Obi-Wan. I'm just like, I'm bored. And I'm like, okay, let's finish it. And episodes 7, 8, and 9 are varying degrees of okay to bad. And Obi-Wan was pretty good, but just kind of pointless. The big problem with Obi-Wan is there's a gigantic climatic fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. But I already know they both walk away from that fight because the prequel, or because 1977 happened. Star Wars is in the canon. So it's like, what was the point of this story? And because I had this thought, I was like, no, you know what? Star Wars was better. Because when I was a kid, it's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to know what happened in all this time? In episode 4, when Obi-Wan says he was a good friend and he turned to the dark side, and I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be great to know that? And it turns out no. The answer is no. The answer is it was better left unsaid. Because Obi-Wan wasn't terrible, but it's a story that didn't need to be told. That's like really the problem with it. And also the way they wrote the Leia character. Like honestly, like if it wasn't for how they wrote baby Leia, like that for me is the biggest detraction from that Obi-Wan series, is that they made baby Leia like social justice queen of the universe who understands everything and is braver and smarter and better than everyone else, even though she's just a little tiny baby girl. It's like that was just so stupid and unnecessary. Like they could have had the character, they could have given her character, and they could have made her a realistic little girl. They could have made her an exceptional little girl and still made her a realistic little girl. But they made her into SJW queen of the future, and it was totally retarded.
So that game is based off of the art of Francisco de Goya, if you know him.
Whoa.
He's the guy who has like the Saturn eating his children painting and all that stuff.
Ooh.
He kind of went into mad. Have you seen that? You know that painting?
Yeah.
It's kind of a famous one. It's based off of this one, especially the procession of flagellants. And the main character is this guy, and it's all super gory. But then there's all sorts of like, I remember Nintendo completely avoided at first using any crosses when they did Castlevania and all that stuff because we can't put anything religious in there. And this is like almost kind of like going at Castlevania and just reversing it and saying we're gonna go straight hard religious with this. And they just put all the Catholic gore in there. There's the Saturn eating his children painting from
Blasphemy.
yeah. And yeah, so it's all based off of this painting right here.
Wow.
But yeah, religious art used to be tip top incredible.
I mean, I think there's something like, because like Richard Dawkins points out that like for so long, the only like to be an artist you needed a patron, and all the patrons were Catholics. So well, of course all the best art was religious because the people paying for art were asking for religious art. So there's something to that. But
I think it's going to come back though, just from whatever subversive kind of gets the attention and the attention or the care of people who care about being, I don't know, interested in it. And if that's the subversive counterculture now, that's where it's going to, there's going to be some stuff led to that, because it's, as we've talked about before, movies and all those sorts of things, they're so rigid nowadays. Let me pull up this.
I only listened to half of Bogosian's interview with Critical Drinker. But like one of the things they talked about is like you can't have a female character anymore that has any flaws. Like they just don't. Like everything from the last 5-10 years, women are all confident and they know what to do, and they have, like they overcome everything and blah blah. Like they can't ever fail at anything, and they sure as hell can't be beaten by a man in anything. And it's just stupid. It's unnatural. It's unreal.
So this Twitter post kind of gets at the joke of it. He says, Dr. Peter Fleming, he says, who knew that Punk had so many rules? And there's this Punk guy, and everything is like this super, super long shirt of no hate, no bigotry, no fascism, no xenophobia, no counter, and just no. And it's like, wow, Punk is just loaded with rules. Just like we know.
Like, no Islamophobia. It's like, do you have any idea? Like, you think you can walk around Riyadh looking like that? You dope. Jesus. Yeah. Do you think that shit will fly in Tehran?
I like this post too. They're incapable of imagining anymore. You said they have no imagination. Well, they all just write something that's a self-insert. Like there's the April O'Neil lady writer. There's like they write a self-insert for whatever their thing is.
Yeah.
They can't. None of them do the type of escapism art where they're writing a character who's nothing like themselves.
I just think that idiot fat punk person, I can't tell if that's a man or a woman. These days it doesn't matter. And because the thing is like, because I've gone through I've gone down some dark rabbit holes on the internet. And because the thing is like, if you want to know exactly what a biblical style stoning looks and sounds like, there are videos of it. It happens in Pakistan and Afghanistan, right? And in Muslim cultures, in very conservative Muslim cultures. And like that idiot wearing a leather jacket with spiked hair and says no Islamophobia. Like I dare that person to watch a stoning. Like it will affect you. It is terrifying. The sound, that was the thing that really struck me when I watched an actual real life modern day stoning. The sound that those rocks make, one after the other, hundreds upon hundreds, hitting that person. It's terrifying, you know? And now I think that stoning is bad, and I guess that makes me an Islamophobe.
Very brave, very brave. Oh wait, no, that's not brave. They're filming Blood Meridian. That scares me to death that they'll screw it up. John Goodman, old school John Goodman could have been the guy. If you ever seen Barton Fink, you can see how John Goodman is in Barton Fink. That could be close to the judge if that guy's got some of the same thing going on. He might be a little bit too in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? But he's probably too old now. John Goodman. I don't know. I don't think they should do. There's no way that they could do Blood Meridian right.
I don't know it.
So, just touch on this quickly. Looks like the polyamorous people have been kicked out of the community of Christ.
Oh, that picture. Oh.
What? I don't see anything.
Oh,
what?
man. First off, I'm having flashbacks from convention catering because I recognize those skirts on that table.
Polyamorous relationships demonstrate a proactive approach to communication that often sets them apart from their monogamous counterparts. While some monogamous couples may enter a relationship or even marriage without thoroughly discussing their roles and expectations, polyamorous individuals engage in these conversations from the outset and continuously revisit them. This ongoing dialogue reflects their recognition of the need to consider the sexual health and emotions of multiple individuals involved. Is polyamory synonymous? This is them making the argument for why the community of Christ was supposed to accept it, and then the guy came out and said here and made a big announcement that they have got to leave community of Christ because they're not accepting of their non-monogamy. So that's the community of Christ. Not up with the age, man. They're not stunning and brave. They're bigots. I like this by Michael Malice. Says the official slogan of conservatism should be changed from "Imagine if the situation were reversed" to "Wow, the left isn't even hiding anymore. It's finally time to get serious."
Slightly ominous.
Did you? Oh, he's joking about it because like they're just gonna say that. But he's because the whole joke is imagine the situation is reversed. That's a long time running thing and like right leaning things like I think I showed it before. It's actually one of the posts of one of our videos. It's like a tombstone. Here lies the right, and it says, "Imagine if the situation were reversed" on the tombstone. And but now he's just saying it's just the new thing to say of you know they're doing all the stuff that they said they were going to do. Do you want to see a supercut of them talking about using the Department of Justice against your opponent? I think they have a supercut of
that. Oh boy, yeah, because like I still remember that when Trump suggesting using the National Guard to protect federal courthouses in Portland was something that only a fascist would do.
Mm-hmm.
Now that he's got the right attorney general in position to do it, we now know they really have been trying to gin up criminal prosecutions and criminal investigations into the president's perceived enemies, politically motivated persecution, right? Courtesy of Bill Barr.
Rachel Maddow, like
home of the 45th.
What's that?
Is she unironically evil? It all spazzed out. Was that on your end or mine?
No, that's the editing.
Oh.
President of the United States has been raided by the FBI.
Mr. Trump is using the Justice Department to go after his perceived enemies. I feel worried about the prospect of the Justice Department being used as a tool of this president or any. In our little banana republic, any capable prosecutor can get a grand jury to hand down an indictment of something as innocent as a ham sandwich.
Today, an indictment was unsealed. charging Donald J. Trump.
Breaking news on former President Trump. He's been indicted for the 4th time in 5 months.
Bill Barr, on the president's behalf, is weaponizing the Justice Department to go after the president's enemies. When you win an election, you don't seek to just prosecute the losing side.
The president using the Justice Department as a weapon to get what he wants.
Department of Justice is totally politicized.
Sticking the department.
This is more just referring back to Dan McCain. Just how bad the projection is everywhere.
It really is.
Projection.
Of justice on political opponents,
Threatening to imprison his political rival, Banana Republic style.
Or you could say it's not projection, it's Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals.
Trying to exact revenge against all of his enemies, tin pot dictator in a banana republic. Is acting more like
Accuse your enemy of exactly what you plan on doing.
a banana republic dictator.
He's using government resources to go after his political opponent.
Oh, did you see that she posted Joe Biden's Twitter post on her own post on accident?
No.
So yeah, she posted something saying, "As president, I was elected to this," and she put it on her own post on accident, showing that she's obviously posting for Joe Biden. Well, nobody thought Joe Biden was actually doing his own Twitter. But yeah, I have the screenshot.
Like, yeah, Trump for better or worse, we know he's writing his Twitter.
Yeah, we didn't. Nobody thought he was doing.
Oh, by the way,
essentially, we are.
You notice that calling Twitter X is going over as well as stop calling the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Mormon. Like everybody's like, yeah, okay.
That's right. Even worse, man, is like he put that lady in charge. That lady just hired a guy who declared himself the Twitter killer to be the person who was putting together a team of people who are going to be in charge of kind of censoring. What's the word they said? We're going to be in charge of any sort of mean or nasty tweets. We're going to make sure that they get 80%. That's the term that they use, or the words they use. They're going to be 80% deboosted in the threads. And they got a guy who was like a complete commissar all ready to do it. I should send in my commissar credentials so I could go become a Twitter censor. But I'll find the cream. Oh, dang it. I'll find her.
We are seeking to have a bogus and criminal investigation into a political opponent.
And that's using the Department of Justice to also target Trump's political opponent for nefarious reasons. This is a massive abuse of power and a betrayal of our values. The President of the United States is targeting a family member of a political opponent. This is the type of thing that happens in a banana republic.
And trying to take out a political rival in Joe Biden, criminally investigating an American political rival, someone the president is worried about losing to in the next election.
To investigate my principal opponent or a principal opponent in the upcoming election. Houston, we have a problem.
Don't you think that's something that should be investigated when the incumbent political party opens a counterintelligence investigation on the candidate of the opposing party?
We know Trump is itching to politicize the Justice Department, and the Attorney General has been super shady.
The president is weaponizing the Department of Justice to bring cases against his enemies. The Department of Justice is in an existential crisis.
Again, it's yet another example of the Justice Department basically losing all of its independence in this administration.
This is now about corrupting the next election. And for me, this was crossing the red line. The president who is actively trying to potentially steal the upcoming election.
To try to take out a political rival. The end goal being 2020.
Trump and his attorney general are using the Justice Department. The only difference between this and a banana republic is that Trump does not eat fruit.
The 2020 election is really the last chance we have to stop our system from fully sliding into a corrupt banana republic.
Bill Barr has done everything that Donald Trump has wanted him to do. Yeah. We're living in a banana republic right now.
When you start using the Justice Department to go after your enemies, that's very, very dangerous.
Donald Trump is using the Department of Justice to go after his enemies in any way that he can.
Having the head of the chief federal law enforcement agency essentially working on his behalf to investigate a political rival.
To investigate the family of a political opponent, basically banana republic behavior. We're no better than some banana republic. And he's using the abuse of power in every element of the
man. Good.
Because here's the stark thing. Is if the Trump Justice Department actually brought any indictments, they'd really have a case. But I don't know how much of that was just Trump blowhard talk and how much of that was them just imagining it, but there were no indictments under Trump of his political enemies, were there? Am I wrong? I don't know.
No, they were just.
Is there something where somebody's going to point out, oh no, they brought an indictment against them? No, they never did.
No.
But here we
are.
The
worst he did is the Hillary Clinton lock her up thing.
Yeah. Which was, I don't know, Trump is absolutely a jackass, undoubtedly. I don't know. I really like Ben Shapiro's commentary on Trump. I think it's really, it's some of the clearest, most comprehensive commentary, because you can tell that Ben Shapiro thinks like a lawyer, where he's like, you don't have to disparage somebody, you just have to say the facts, because you can tell that Ben Shapiro thinks that Trump is a dope in 10 million different ways. But that doesn't mean that everything Trump does is necessarily wrong, but this whole thing, I don't know. I wonder what will come of it, but it's terrifying to me because like my whole problem is like, okay, let's make it a criminal offense to spread election conspiracies. Let's do it. Let's do it. But that means that like all of the Democratic apparatus has to resign. They have to turn themselves in.
Yeah, I'll trade you all for all. I'll trade all for all.
Yeah, I'll trade all for all. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But
like
that's the point. Is we've mentioned before the Carl Schmitt saying, his main quote is the sovereign is the person who gets to decide the exception. That's who's ruling you. The person who decides the exception is the real ruler. And
yeah, that's absolutely the case.
I like this Zelf on the shelf. Put this guy in his place. Remember how outraged everybody got after the Catholic sex abuse scandal? Countless articles, public outrage, swift backlash. The scale of sexual abuse in government schools is nearly 100 times greater than that of the Catholic Church. True. And yet crickets.
Yep.
There are an estimated 3.2 million public school teachers in the country, meaning the arrests compiled by Fox News Digital make up, they made sure that it was Fox News Digital, so to make up only 0.084% of the thing. What percentage of Catholic priests have been accused? 4.9%. That's those numbers that I brought up last week that are dubious as shit.
Yeah.
But he put them in place. He got them treated. But the Catholic numbers are extrapolating from one area in France, and then just assuming that that's how it is everywhere.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. But they got Kara to do math.
Potpourri. I don't know if there's that much more potpourri.
You got some more potpourri?
There's Midnight Mormons put up a poll about, who do you believe most belongs in jail? Donald Trump, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, all of them, none of them.
The Midnight Mormons? You said Midnight Mormons.
No, Mormon Stories. And as mentioned, Jonathan Streeter, anytime he posts anything about a subject of trans issues or something, that he just gets bombarded, he gets ripped off, says, what does this have to do with Mormonism? What does this have to do with Mormonism? That none of them, I think it was Jared's selection, and he's the only one who chose it, and that's why it's at 2%. But all of them, none of them. Want to know what's funny is I have a poll here that came from the New York Times. It was put on Fox News, but do you want to know what percent of like America thinks that they both belong in jail from the New York Times?
Let's see it. All right, let's see it.
Well, this one might surprise you other way because it's not very much.
I mean,
most people are pretty rational about it, actually.
Because here's the thing: it's like I think that Donald Trump was wrong to try to dig up anything he could ultimately. Like, I shouldn't say he was wrong. Like, people are allowed to defend themselves. Like in court, right? Everybody deserves the best defense they can get. There's that, but like freedom of speech. I mean, I'm curious to see what these indictments of Trump actually reveal. But the thing is, like, because I goddamn guarantee that if we apply the standard fairly, there's nobody innocent anywhere.
Yeah, I mean that's just the simple truth of it, and that's the thing that's been blowing my mind for 8, 9, 10 years, or however long we've been in the whole Trump mess. Is that anybody at any point, any politician was above the absolute narcissism and bullshit? That's been my only curiosity in the whole entire time. Like, exactly. Why do you guys pretend anybody anywhere in that world is the good guy?
Because has Hillary Clinton or any other Democrat conceded that the 2016 election was legitimate?
No, that guy's got another one of another super cut of all those people who, and that's what Trump's getting indicted about, of them saying that it was all meddled with and not true and bad and stuff like that.
So 17%. hardcore believers, and then a lot of
71%. That's if you look at the writing down at the bottom. It's a New York Times poll. 71%.
Wow,
has
that's
not committed
interesting.
serious crime. It's just a bunch of BS and still just kind of like the fringe left. Because
Wait,
even
is
the
that,
New York
wait, is
Times
that
poll.
just Republicans? Wait, 818 Republican
Oh,
registered
does it say
voters.
Republicans?
Is that just Republicans? Oh,
No.
okay. I think
So-
that's what that says. I don't know. Statistics. There's lies, damn lies, and
Oh
statistics.
yeah, there it is. It was a Republican, but it was still a New York Times poll.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know nothing.
The other thing is, like, I mean, this is like, talk about subjective. Serious crimes. Is lying about an election more serious than stealing someone's car, or carjacking someone, or robbing a convenience store with, like, pointing your finger like a gun through a jacket and pretending it's a gun and robbing a convenience store? Is that more or less serious than saying I should have won this election? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I don't think so, but I'd be willing to hear the case.
All right, which plastic surgery is worse? The plastic surgery on Jared's youthful crush, or the plastic surgery on my youthful crush? You got Elliot Rodgers versus Meg Ryan. Like, which way is it, Western boy?
Man.
Like my crush when I was young was Meg Ryan, and I don't know which looks better right now, Elliot Rodgers or the, whatever women do to their faces nowadays when they.
Neither of them are particularly feminine.
I so wish I could, because like I saw all the ladies from Friends and they've all jacked up their faces, and I so wish that all these different like celebrity women, I could see them how they would actually look right now, because I bet you that, especially as I've aged, I bet you if they hadn't ever done that, any of them, I would still be attracted to all of them.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like because I am associated with the sale of alcohol in the state of Utah. I get to see everyone's ID. And my God, has that been an education? Like, it's amazing to me how differently people age, one thing, just naturally. But the other thing is, like, I mean, long before I had this job, I always said, like, if I was a gajillionaire, I would finance my own PSAs to women particularly, but everybody, like, stop getting the filler in your lips.
Yeah,
stop it.
It's
don't
the
do
women
it.
at the gym, because they don't
look
have all the makeup on at the gym. It's nightmarish to me.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's the thing is, like, it makes you look older. You look older, and that's things like, I mean, I see young women, like women in their low 20s, and they've got the duck lips, and it's like, why did you do that? You don't look better. Everyone, like, just let yourself age naturally. That's the thing about, like, with women and beauty. That's the thing that's so interesting to me, because, like, I mean, I don't know who the guys are who are like, I want to date the woman with fake tits and puffed up lips. I don't know. Maybe they exist. But, like, I've always felt like take care of yourself and you'll be fine. Like, that's the way to go. Just that. Like, don't think too hard about it. Because, like, part of me, like I'm less attracted to women who put an enormous amount of effort into being attractive. Because, like, I'm just like the thing, like, I just imagine you spending 2.5 hours every morning doing that, and I'm like, well, that's boring. like we could be having fun. Like, we could watch a movie in that 2 hours that you're doing all this shit that makes you just look done up and not pretty. But I don't know. That's just me. But yeah, like the filler that's the big thing for me. The puffed up duck lips.
Yeah,
like,
it drives me
don't
crazy.
look good. You don't look good.
The
And that's the other
second-
thing is, like, that's the other thing though about, like, my job is that, because, like, I see, like, the hippie women that have never done any cosmetic anything and are in their 50s and 60s, and they just,
it looks
like,
great.
they just eat well and they take care of themselves, and, like,
they look great.
again,
And
you look
they
great.
look-
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, that's the thing that's blown my mind is that, like, in my job where I see 10,000 IDs a year, like, I see women who are in their 50s who have done zero cosmetic effort and they look better than 28-year-old women who you can tell have
I bet you,
enormous
especially
amount of
those
effort.
celebrity women who probably ate well and kept in shape all the time. I bet you they'd look amazing right now. I
Yeah.
bet you every one of them. I bet Jennifer Aniston would not look bad right now if she hadn't jacked up her face.
Absolutely. No, that dumb meme about like, if you went back to 1991 and said in 2023 Roseanne Barr will look better than Madonna.
Yeah.
Like, but that's
Exactly.
true. There's really something there because
Oh,
Roseanne
it's
Barr
true.
didn't give a shit about her looks. And today, Roseanne Barr is eminently more fuckable than Madonna.
Yeah.
By 1,000%. Because for one thing, Roseanne Barr can tell a joke. You can talk to Roseanne Barr. I can't imagine having a conversation with Madonna on any subject that I'd be interested in. But I would talk to Roseanne about anything, and I
Roseanne's
guarantee I'd
awesome.
be entertained. Yeah.
No. Anyway, there's other little things. I got some weird UN stuff that they're showing that they're trying to get rid of. They themselves say by 2050 they're going to get rid of all flying, shipping, and fossil fuels.
Yeah, well, enjoy your artisanal vegan cheese without shipping.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I don't know. It's probably getting close to a wrap up. Have you ever seen this meme right here of oh man, I gotta show you this one. You might have seen this one. This one was kind of famous on the internet for a while, but did you ever see this? Ladies and gentlemen, I've looked in the future and you will not believe this shit. And it's the sports announcer, and he's standing next to O.J. Simpson and Bruce Jenner.
It just reminds me, like, there's that super classic Simpsons thing where the guy's in the coma, where he's like, where he says, like, does Sonny and Cher still have that terrible show? And he says, no, he's a senator and she won an Oscar. And he says, good night.
So funny.
How's Justine Bateman look? Got a comment about Justine Bateman.
Oh, what does she look like? I haven't seen or thought about her in a while.
Nope. Yeah, that's right. She looks
She look
better than
good?
everybody her age. I mean, she looks her age, but she looks better than somebody who spent a lot of time puffing up her lips and shit. For sure.
Justine Bateman, yeah. I always thought Susan Sarandon and what's her name? They've probably done a little bit of something, but Helen Mirren both look
How does
amazing in
Catherine
their older
Keener look
age.
these days? Because I remember I saw
Catherine Keener didn't do any of that, did she?
No, she looks good. Catherine Keener looks good.
Did you put Bateman up? Did you put her on the?
Oh, did I put her on the thing? I don't know. I don't. Is it easier for me to put it on or for you to put it on? I don't know how the internet works.
Oh, either way. Justine Bateman. Oh yeah, not infinitely better than if you had done a bunch of.
Jamie Lee Curtis is 64. How's Jamie Lee Curtis look? Look, we are such patriarchal. Look at us. We're judging women on their looks, unlike women who never.
Well, look at that. Look at this. Like, if Jennifer Aniston had the same thing going on, I guarantee Jennifer Aniston would just be looking great still.
You've seen? Was it Leprechaun or Troll 2?
I bet you I would be more attracted to untouched Jennifer Aniston today than I was when she was in her 20s.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like pre-nose job, Jennifer Aniston looks 1,000 times better than Jennifer Aniston today, for sure.
That's not what she looks like now.
Can you find a picture of her pre-nose job?
You're talking like way back, huh?
Oh yeah. No. Yeah.
No, these aren't what she looks like. I saw her live in the. That's Google. Not what she looks like. There, these pictures.
It's like
because I saw her on the Friends reunion, and it was like, what are those puppets in the Dark Crystal, the good ones?
Yeah, no, you're right.
What are those called?
I don't know. I know what you're talking about.
Not the bad guys.
Yeah. No, the main ones. Yeah, they've got those uncanny duck lips. No, was it? I
This
remember
is
many years ago. Was it?
But when they talk and they move and their faces move, like how these
Yeah.
things move.
No, exactly. I remember. Was it? I remember many years ago, like Cameron Diaz at the Oscars, and I just went. It was like hitting a brick wall. We're like, holy shit! What did you do? Like, why'd you do that?
Yeah. Because they do it before they even start turning that bad. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
It's like they're getting out ahead of it because they saw a little bit of a crow's feet or something. And they're like,
Yeah.
no, that Meg Ryan totally. Like Meg Ryan was like, I still had my crush on her. Then all of a sudden one day she comes out and her lips look like a blimp.
Like that's the thing is like because this is the thing that's so funny is that they say that it's a mass it's patriarchal standard of this superficial beauty where it's like as a member of the patriarchy, I'm telling you, like
we're telling you that
I'm
no,
so much
be natural.
Yeah. For one thing, like for one thing, I have the respect of like you age naturally. Like and I had like there's attraction in the part where you just took care of yourself generally and didn't think about it. Like honestly like I'm attracted to the part where you don't care. Like that's part of what I'm into. Like one of the things that turns me off about women that are extremely done up, like I think I already mentioned this, but like it's just that like I'm repulsed by how obsessed you are with your looks.
But this goes back to the Barbie speech, and most women know this too. It's an old saying like that. Why do women wear makeup? Is it really to attract men, or is it because other women will judge them if they don't wear makeup? I mean, it's the same as the Barbie speech. And we know that some of it's men, some of it's but only the one or two men that you actually want to attract, not all those other men.
Yeah.
But really who you're impressing and who's making you keep up appearances is other women. And it's always been other women. It's not been us. Almost all that facial crap has been other women.
Because that's the other thing is like even the men who are like, yeah, okay, I'll take it. Like if you gave them the bargain, like would you still take me without it? They'd say like, sure. You know, like that's the thing is like I don't know. I mean, I remember like I don't know. I remember my ex-wife. Like I'd come home from work real late because I was delivering pizzas. We were young. And I'd come home at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and we need to go shopping at the Walmart. And she's like, okay, let me put on my makeup. I'm like, we're going to fucking Walmart at 2 in the fucking morning. Like, I'm already married to you. I already think you're attractive. What are you doing? And that's things like I was an idiot and I realized much later, it's like, oh no, this isn't about me.
Everybody needs to watch more Keeping Up Appearances and realize that show is telling you more about life. And it was telling you more about what Mormonism is. Mormonism wasn't, at least the Salt Lake Mormonism wasn't patriarchy. It was keeping up appearances with Hyacinth. That's what it always was. It tells you way more about what our world actually is. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's not little parts where there was like some guy who was like an overbearing douche. I know that existed, but
for sure.
Keeping appearances and how Hyacinth acts is far more my life experience across the board.
I was talking to my gay coworker, and I was talking about our very conversation about how the vast majority of Mormon men we knew were henpecked. He's like, absolutely. Like he was like, yeah, no, that's the case. That's what that is. That's what Mormonism is for the most part.
Anyway, I gotta walk.
Alrighty,
Charlie Pooch.
You gonna watch Charlie Dog?
Walking a Charlie Dog. Thanks for chilling and
I just pat my cat on the head for another time. You don't have to walk.
Oh man. Yeah, it's one of the things you got to see on Puss in Boots because there's like kind of a lot of jokes about cats, and then they pick up like a dog along the way, and the cats are cynical, and the dog's just overwhelmingly like, and there's funny jokes in it. It's on Netflix. It's funny.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is because like I guarantee that Charlie never hunts you in the night, but like 10% of the time that I get up to go pee in the middle of the night, I get bitten on the ankles by a predator.
The show did very good, and I think anybody could enjoy it because it kind of beyond kind of joking with fairy tale stuff really well. It does a lot of really good dogs versus cat jokes, and so like anybody who likes cats and likes dogs might like them.
Yeah, see, because that's things like I've always been a both. I like dogs for being dogs. I like cats for being cats, and I appreciate that they are not at all the same.
Yep. Alrighty, thanks for chilling, everybody.
See you later.
Hasta luego.